Liked by the sound of violence.
But certainly I do not want, and I don't think we'll ever see a situation where just pure content creation for clicks replaces actual journalism, because the actual journalism is actually incredibly valuable. And to lose something like that, I think, would be detriment, not just to journalists or media people working in the space, but the industries they cover. Industries that they actually improve and affect by their journalism, I think would take a hit, would suffer from a lack of that kind of coverage.
Are you excited about it all?
What up, everybody, and welcome back to yet another Sound of Violence podcast. I am Pulver, and I'm here yet again with my co-host, Chris Madaffer. What's up, dude?
What up, man? I know I just tried hearing what you're saying, but I know sometimes in the intro it sounds like you get sucked into a vacuum or some sort of room. I think I can hear you now.
Always a good sign.
Okay, I can hear you now. Yeah, it does it every time, but it usually goes away. Anyways, I am alright. To be fair, I've been drinking all day. Celebrated Father's Day early this afternoon. Had a really nice lunch with some family, including my pops. It was nice. Bought him lunch. I know he didn't want me to do that, but it's like, no. It's Father's Day, which was nice. Yeah, man. And since then, me and my homie Trevor, his parents were over here. We were barbecuing, grilling, and having fun, just drinking, playing ping pong, and just chilling outside, man. It's been nice. So, yeah. Basically just been drinking all goddamn day, like an adult.
Well, you know, it is that time of, or it is that year of the year, I guess. I don't know how to phrase that. It's 2020. People be boozing.
Yeah, or as a certain person would say, you got to worry about the kung flu that's out there.
Oh, Jesus. Here we go.
Yeah.
We're starting this off early.
I'm kidding, but that's also concerning.
Yeah, that'll come up a couple times this week, I have a feeling. But we will go ahead and get into format here in a second. But before we do, what are you drinking on this week? Since you did say you've been boozing, so
this
you been
was
drinking on today?
My buddy Jorge bought me a beer from this brewery, and this is supposed to be his, but he's not here, so I'm going to drink his in his honor. Technically, it's his beer that he bought. I was at Jimbo's here in Claremont, San Diego, and some beer representative, he didn't tell me where he was from, not that I asked. I could just tell by his vibe he was a beer rep from somewhere. He told me El Segundo Brewing Company is it's fantastic. These guys, I think, are from San Pedro.
Something like that? El Segundo, maybe?
Nope. El Segundo, California.
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking of a Dutch-inspired brewery called, like, El Brewer. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They have like the Dutch letter or Belgian lettering or something like
Brewery
that.
West, maybe?
Yeah. That's it. That's exactly what it is. Something West. Don't want to trust it. But thank you. No, El Segundo is literally from El Segundo. You can tell how sober I am. Anyways, this is called Casa Azul. It's lager obscura, meaning dark lager, if you speak Spanish. Or just have any common sense of language.
Casa Azul is Blue House, right?
That's Blue House, but it says it's a dark lager.
Okay.
Lager obscura. So.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It looks like a dark lager. Let's see. Okay, that's clean. I like it.
Yeah, they have some fantastic beers. They have some really good. I want to say they had a Citra IPA that is fucking delicious. And then is it Early Bird or something like that? Oh, Segundo.
Yeah, the other beer I had from them, they called it a hybrid IPA. Let me see if I checked into it on Untapped. What's it called?
What the Surfin' Bird was the name of the El Segundo beer. I think I actually might have even had that on the show. But yeah, really good. They have all their beers are really clean, really well made.
Oh, Blurred Lines is what I tried the other day.
Oh,
It's
nice.
in hybrid IPA. It's basically like hazy plus West Coast, which is like
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people
Yeah.
are doing like those West Coast hazies nowadays, where they're
it's like
like,
West Coast hazy.
yeah, they're a little bit more bitter, a little bit more tropical, a little bit less like orange juice flavors, kind of. Cool, man.
Yeah. So how about you, man? What do you put on?
So I am drinking this week a Dark and Stormy because I just happened to get a bunch of ginger beer again, and I love me some Dark and Stormies.
Is that like with Gosling's rum or Myers rum? It's like a dark-
I believe technically it's supposed to be Gosling's rum, and I am technically using Gosling's rum, but you could use any of like the darker, sweeter rums. Any of those would work.
Yeah, so it's essentially what, just dark rum, ginger beer, and that's about it. I don't even know.
Dark rum, lime, ginger beer, and
Okay.
dark rum is a weird thing. Rum is a weird thing. People generally qualify it as light, gold, and dark, which don't mean anything and don't tell you anything about what the rum tastes like. But yeah, I don't know. If you're using a dark rum for a drink like this, I would go something sweeter like a Gosling's rather than something like dry and super funky like a Myers. Because those are both dark rums, but they taste completely different. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it. So, and I also got a big, tall-ass Humble Brown, the old school Humble Brown logo with the weed leaf pint glass. So, shouts to that.
Nice.
Well, on that note, why don't we go ahead and get into format? Because it has been an interesting week for MMA podcasts. Podcasting in general, it's been an interesting week. Everybody's getting canceled this week. And we are not going to get into it too much. But good googly moogly. Let's just say we nailed our skips for last week. Maybe didn't nail our well-rounded picks as much. But we will probably get to that
in
later.
hindsight, unfortunately not, but yeah, we'll get to that later.
Yeah, Chris, you don't get congratulations for your well-rounded pick last week. But before we get to go ahead.
Yeah, we'll get into that. It's just all it is literally just bad timing. Like,
and
no
like
one could really predicted that.
And if you could have,
okay. Some people could have, but then again,
right.
Well, we'll get into it.
Yeah. If you would have predicted it, it would not have been your catch, I would imagine, or your well-rounded. Anyway, we'll get into that a bit later. I don't have any news this week aside from, obviously, we mentioned last week, and it came up again. It'll come up again here in a bit, but The Athletic, all the MMA podcasts are now gone, which is a fucking sad thing. And this week they had their last episode of their last MMA podcast, which was the Man and the Myth. And I'll bring that up in a bit, but I wanted to acknowledge that off the top because that's a big bummer. And they were doing a lot of really cool stuff over there between Fernanda's podcast, actually, the Man and the Myth, and then Josh Gross brought his podcast, Gross Point Blank, over to The Athletic for a bit. And so, bummer to see all those gone because they were all really good. And I miss Chris the producer. God damn it, Chris the producer. He's one of the best goddamn producers in the fucking business, and fucker deserves so much more work than he gets. You would think he's Mike Harrington with the way he gets treated by these motherfuckers. But we love Chris the producer here at this podcast. We're big Chris the producer fans, so. Anyway, I don't have any other news other than if you guys want some cool skate shit, like if you guys skate or surf or anything, buy shit from Claremont Surf Shop. We are in no way sponsored by them other than most people I know have... I know a lot of people who have either worked there at some point in their life or sold things to that place at certain points of their life or have been affiliated with it, kind of, or at least just smoked weed in back of it a whole bunch during certain points of their life. I fall into at least one of those categories. Yeah,
I can attest to that as well.
Yeah. And just they're great people, family-owned business here in San Diego, and they have a bunch of cool skate shit and surf stuff. Super knowledgeable. Everybody's really nice. So big shouts to them.
It's basically the surf shop for the middle class San Diegan or middle and lower class San Diegan compared to Mitch's in La Jolla, or the other one in Encinitas. I'm kidding. I'm
Right,
not trying
or
to
like
shit
all the
on
like fucking touristy shit in PB or any of that. Like
There's
Claremont Surf.
nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with Mitch's in La Jolla. That
No,
place
but Claremont Surf Shop
fine.
is where
Yeah.
everybody goes who
Yeah.
is like isn't trying to go to La Jolla to buy fucking merchandise.
That's all it is. Yeah. And I'm not gonna show the Encinitas. Their surf shop is fucking rad, and I don't even surf. I am a fucking wimp in the water. I always basically drown, so you're not gonna see me surfing. But as far as just the vibe and just supporting your community, surf shops are a good place to go.
Definitely. Well, and they've employed a ton of our friends over the years, and it's always been real. I mean, shit. They were like giving me shit when I was a kid, just because I was like a poor kid, and they're like, "Here, man, we got these decks that are like kind of fucked up, so you can just have one and shit." Like half the skate shit I ever owned in my life was from them, so I wanted to give them a shout since I saw their name actually come up a few times this week. Yeah, actually, I think they started following me on Instagram, which means probably my buddy Travis or somebody works there still, or again, which big shouts out to them. Shouts to TS Surfboards if they're still around. Tony Staples and Travis Staples, dudes I grew up with, and taught me how to surf way forever ago.
Thank you for sending me that well-rounded stuff about
Yeah,
local Claremont guys.
I was gonna say that actually will come up later, and it's kind of what
Yeah.
reminded me of to bring up Claremont Surf Shop because they were down at Giovanni's for one of those videos.
I thought that was so rad. When I saw that video.
Dude. Well, he grew up in the fucking apartments, right, like on the block and shit, right there. So
I was gonna say, was it like Stratton or just kind of like the ones that are right by Fortune Cookie?
I mean, he lived all over that area. Like he
Yeah.
also had a house over kind of by Bobby Sox Field and Holmes and all that. Because like he would, we'll get to it later. Because I definitely want to talk about it. But yeah, shouts to some local skaters who are super nice dudes. One of which actually we'll get to that as well. But there was a big skate protest yesterday in downtown San Diego that was put together by Brandon Turner, and shouts to those dudes. I know a lot of our buddies like Gilbert were down there.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, Gilbert, who you guys would know from the two paintings behind me, the Leslie Smith painting and the Seamus painting. So shouts to him. But anyway, we are not a booze or I don't know what the fuck that would have. Well, you know what? Considering who we were secretly talking about just then, I'll still include it as a booze podcast related thing. Because shouts to Pete. He been known to drink a fucking 40 or two. So we'll get to that later. But before we get to any of that, Chris, why don't we start it off with the MMA podcast we recommend people catch this week?
So I got a solid catch in. I guess technically it's well-rounded, and that's not an MMA podcast, but the guest was an MMA fighter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this was Theo Vaughn's podcast this past weekend. He had Sean O'Malley, The Sugar Show, on there with his coach, Tim. I always forget his name. Just call him Timbo.
Yeah, Timbo. I keep wanting to say Bliss, but that's wrong, right?
Yeah.
It might be his
can't remember.
Instagram name or something. Anyway, also
Either
we
way,
should note this was prior to any news about a certain LA comedian that may or may not be friends with Theo Vaughn. So just for the record, when Chris talks about this, he listened to this prior to any of that.
So yeah, it was good, man. Because the last time I listened to Sean O'Malley in a podcast was his podcast, and I think I mentioned before he wasn't really in his own element. He was under the influence, I guess you want to call it. I feel like he was kind of
He was smoking
relaxed
hell of
and-
weed. I don't know if we can call that under the influence.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean,
I have a workaround to fix this, I think. I really need to do something about the setup. Hey, there we go. I think we're back. Yeah, we're back. Sorry about that.
oh no, it's all good.
Anyway, you were saying about Sean?
Yeah, you talked about growing up in Helena, Montana.
I forgot that he's essentially a co-main event.
Yeah,
He's one of their guys.
So I think he said his mom. I can't remember what his mom's job was. She was a nurse. I think his dad was a detective. He said, which was intimidating in that he was afraid of weed, and he thought basically weed is for the devil. Growing up, and his mom was a God-fearing woman, basically as Catholic and as religious as it gets. So it was interesting to hear his perspective on that. Growing up, he was basically a very sheltered child.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that
really
before,
kind
but
of explore and do much. At least what he let out.
that explains the face tattoos.
Yeah, and it was interesting. He talked about the first fight scene he got into was in Montana, against kind of his parents' wishes, and that's where he met Timbo, his coach. And essentially, Tim convinced him, hey man, you got to get the fuck out of here. If you kind of want to make it in mixed martial arts, this is way too sheltered of a place.
Yeah.
Sean talked about, he grew up privileged. He was in a very giant house, like on the water in
Well, to
Montana.
be fair, Montana, like, you can do that
and he's
way
like, Montana.
affordable.
He said, for some weird reason, the suicide rates are so high, and Theo was like, why? And it's like, because he's like, people are bored, and Theo's like, dude, that place is beautiful. How the fuck can you be bored? And he's like, dude, you just have to live there.
Also,
like,
Theo
damn.
came from the South, where you're like, he's like, man, y'all are killing yourself where it's pretty. I was doing steroids with a guy in a ditch next to the freeway.
Yeah. But yeah, Sean talked about moving to Arizona, and his coach Tim introduced him to weed.
Tim Welch.
His coach introduced him to weed. And, hey man, you're very hyper. You need to just chill out. So here's some weed. And he said ever since then he just kind of chilled the fuck out. And the face tattoos, I think he talked about his mom was basically. I think his mom called him after a certain fight and was telling him like, oh my goodness, Sean, you're such a sinner, blah blah, just guilt tripping him, and God would not be proud of you, or you should be ashamed of yourself.
Did he tell his mom, "Don't worry, we're not Jewish"?
Right. Basically, yeah, and his mom was like, oh my goodness, you have a girlfriend and you're not married. That the kind of religious.
Oh wow, his mom's like religious.
She's from what he was saying, she's a God-fearing woman.
She's like the mom in Detroit Rock City.
Yes, that is a very, very.
I love that movie.
Yeah, music is for the devil.
I lost my virginity in a confessional booth.
Yeah, shout out to that movie, man. That movie's a fucking trip. I gotta see that again. Wasn't that the one too where like you play Kiss backwards and it sounds like this?
Knights in Satan's service.
Yeah,
it's really it's really underrated actually. Natasha
Yo,
Lyonne.
guys, they call me Dr. Love.
Yeah, that movie's super underrated. Ethan Hawke, Natasha Lyonne.
Was that a fucking Cameron Crowe movie or no?
No, it was.
I don't think so. Yeah,
it had a great soundtrack though. It had like the Donnas and the Ramones and a bunch of people. It was really good.
Yeah,
bunch of Kiss music.
Anyways,
obviously.
He came from that kind of background. Anyways, that's not important. He talked about in Arizona. Some other, basically from what I got from him, his foray into mixed martial arts and the way he kind of conditions himself is a lot through yoga, stretching, kind of keeping himself limber. As far as putting on mass, he says since he cuts to 135, I think he said in his fight against Wineland he was about at 158. So he said one of his fights, it wasn't against Teco, against Quinones. It was against, I think, Andre Sugumtat.
Yeah.
He had a really terrible weight cut, and he couldn't even really rehydrate. And he said weighing it, like his fight weight was 138, and he said he thought he was going to pass out, like just walking to the octagon.
Jesus.
And he said, yeah, that was just. He said it was just
inexperience.
A number of inexperience, just bad weight cut, not rehydrating properly. And said he felt anorexic and he didn't have the right mass distribution compared to his water and his body, his BMI. And he says lately he's had a brand new just kind of conditioning and nutrition regimen, and now he said he put on, I think 10 pounds or 15 pounds of muscle, but he made sure it was distributed. He's like, I'm still a skinny guy, but most of my muscle went to my thighs, my legs, and I just spread it out as evenly as I could. And I was like, that's smart. That's kind of a smart way to do it as far as just weight distribution. I feel like a lot of people kind of just put a lot of time and effort into their arms, their shoulders, their chest. But Sean is a very tall 135er, and he's about 5'11", which is crazy fucking tall. So
Yeah.
If he's only cutting about 23, 25 pounds.
Considering I got 100 pounds on him and we're about the same height. Actually, I think he's taller than me.
Yeah, he's got about 10, 13 pounds on me, and that's me not. That's just me walking around. So
And he
I'm
has,
about like
9 inches on you?
But then again, yeah, he's like 5-inch height. Whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
small, but either way, yeah, it was cool, man. It's just kind of hearing a different side from him. Hadn't really kind of heard him in like a relaxed manner. It was kind of nice to hear him. And there's nothing wrong with being stoned, but it's kind of nice hearing him just kind of just straight to the point, just being coherent, kind of just being able to kind of talk about just his routine, his training camps, and everything. And the dude is very confident. I dig that. He talked about he got into martial arts to build his confidence. He was kind of in a place where he wasn't feeling confident at all, and martial arts kind of got him to that plateau, which is, I commend that. That's great.
Yeah, that's one of the things people always recommend about martial arts. So.
And yeah, I like this kid. I'm gonna be rooting for him for sure. It'll be interesting to see what kind of opponent they give him next. I imagine it's gonna be I think Eddie Wineland was number 15.
Yeah,
and I think O'Malley's now number 15. So
I forget who we decided that he should fight next. But it was a good
I think he called out Marlon Vera.
I don't hate that fight. Cheeto Vera would be a very fun fight.
Yeah. Because I know he's talking about, like, yeah, I want to fight Cody Garbrandt. And he's like, realistically, that's not going to happen now. Yeah, we'll see.
And also, it's just way too early in his career for that. Like, while I do think he would have areas where he could succeed, that is a fucking tough ask at this early in his career. Especially with Cody looking like, well, I was going to say improved, but he did throw a punch from his opposite side back pocket to win that last fight. So, yeah, I like Sean. I think you're right. I think his podcast can get a little. I don't want to say too relaxed, but he does the same thing Alpha Male used to do with their podcast, where everybody is wearing flip flops and leaned at a almost horizontal angle, and they're all half asleep and tired from training and high. Which is not conducive to interesting conversation, but it is conducive to kind of mumbling into a mic a lot. And I think sometimes his podcast can suffer from that. But when you get some coffee and him and Tim and they're fired up, I think it's a lot more interesting. And yeah, Theo Von always brings the energy. So yeah, it sounds like a good one. I did not end up getting around to it because after the way this week went, I was like, I'm probably good on listening to Theo Von this week. Not that Theo Von necessarily did anything wrong or anything, but I saw enough clips going around of, we'll say, other comedian-related stuff that included
a certain
Theo
comedian
Von.
That's played him. See, a certain comedian that is now known as a method actor.
Yeah, a multiple-time method actor.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is like the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Fucking.
Oh God damn it, you're my.
I mean, to be fair, if you ever want to. Okay, let's keep on moving on. Anyway.
That's why I had a tough time watching Deadwood. Just.
Wait, who in Deadwood? Oh, I forgot he was in that. Totally forgot he was in that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, I watched a movie where he was the devil.
I was like, when does this guy get shot in the face?
I think I watched him. Was he the devil in the movie? What was it? Tuned In or something like that? I watched one of the worst 90s movies I've ever seen in my life the other day, where it was who was it? Is Ritter? Ritter's the guy from Three's Company? John Ritter?
Oh, John Ritter. Yeah. And
So-
also from Eight Rules for Dating, My Teenage, what the fuck is it called?
Yeah. So he played a movie where he went. He made a deal with the devil and he got sucked into a TV and he had to survive 24 hours inside the TV with each channel trying to kill him. But there was a way to navigate between channels. It was so
really
bad.
Fucking bad, but good.
Yeah, hold on. Stay Tuned is the name of it. Oh my God, I recommend everybody go watch Stay Tuned. Smoke a fuck ton of weed and watch the movie Stay Tuned. That's what I did after the UFC card last night, and it was the most fun. It's a bad movie, but it's a fun bad movie. Anyway, that reminded me of that because that one pedo was in it.
1992, John Ritter. Oh my god, this looks fucking weird.
Dude, it's
a husband and wife were sucked into a hellish television set and have to survive a gauntlet of Twitch versions of shows they find. Oh my god, that sounds pretty rad though.
It's really good and really bad and really dumb all at the same time. It's a lot of fun. Would definitely get like really, really high for it for sure.
Yeah, damn, the wife's a babe too. So
yeah, what's her name? She's a well-known actress.
Her name is Pam Dauber.
Really? Her name was? I didn't know Drew Dober's mom was the wife in that.
Pam Dauber is the actress.
Sure. Speaking of hilarious tie-ins and great movie references, my catch for this week, one of the two that I have, is the Protect Your Neck podcast, episode 201. I've really been liking Dan's podcast. If you guys didn't know, Dan talked up the top of this episode about his op-ed that he did about teaching cops BJJ and why it's maybe not the fucking solution. I mean, and I don't want to go into his points too much specifically, but it was just a very like well thought out, and I'm sure it was a hard piece for him to write because like that's always going to be a hard piece to write anyway, and especially if you're having to talk about experiences that you've had with like not only just in gyms but with police officers in gyms who you train with and interesting shit like that, and it's just it's just a very tough topic for him to cover, and especially in light of that horrific Bloody Elbow article that came out last week about that shit, about how like every cop should have a purple belt or the fuck that idiot said.
Sounds very aware.
Yeah. It's like, well, let's definitely give the dudes who think that choking people out with a knee on dudes' necks is a good idea. Let's definitely teach them omoplatas so they can make it look cooler.
Real quick, I'm sold on this John Ritter movie because, they jump into different TV programs.
Mm-hmm. You'll
recognize this movie. And look what it says on this shirt.
Dude, I'm telling you, they do all of the references. All of the references. It becomes meta as fuck in like... But you gotta realize it's like hell versions of all the TV shows. So the only one I'll give away, there is a hell version of Mike Myers and Dana Carvey as the hell version of fucking Wayne's World. Yeah, I forget the name of their show.
That's what that was. That's what I showed you.
Yeah. But like they do all kinds of deeper references than even that. Like they keep saying excrement over and over again. It's weird shit. It's very bad.
Oh, instead of yeah.
Dude, it's very bad, but in like all the fun ways. But yeah, anyway, back to the Dan Tom stuff. Yeah, it was cool hearing him talk a little bit about his article. And then the real reason why I picked this is because, man, this is one of the best weeks, I would say, for why I just am absolutely in love with Dan's podcast. Because that dude does fight breakdowns in a way that no one else could or should or would even be able to do. Like, that dude has... he has so many references on top of references for like films and just funny shit. And let me put it this way. He gets in I'm just going to say these 3 sentences, and really that's all you need to know about how good this podcast is. Number 1, he talks about how one of Volkov's cornermen clearly belongs in Metalocalypse.
That's pretty great.
And it really, really pays off the more you look into this corner man. Number 2, he talks about Jim Miller's Instagram, which you guys will hear a clip from on the break, and it's fucking... Oh my god. It's some of the... First off, have you looked at Jim Miller's Instagram this week?
No, but I'm going to check it out now.
Let's just say, I hope there's no young children in the room with you. I don't. It was already ridiculous. I hadn't heard about it until Dan talked about it, and then Dan had some of the funniest jokes ever. And then I'm just gonna put this phrase into the universe, and you can take from it what you will. There is a passenger 57 parlay that takes place on this last card, and let's just say it.
Is this latest one?
No, it's the couple leading up to fight week. Like one of his is him putting up a fence.
You said it's Jim Miller?
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to look it up probably.
Yeah. Well, I'll play you the clip on the break. It's not really... I don't want to give it away. You guys will hear on the break, but it's just really funny. And it's a great example of why Dan Tom's podcast, Protect Your Neck, is so unique, because no one's going to be making those references. And the people who would, very few of them would have the balls to actually do it. And, of course, since Dan Tom is, like, the nicest dude on the planet, he goes in and apologizes 1,400 times every time he makes a horrible joke, which kind of just makes it even more endearing. So, yeah, man, I love Dan Tom's podcast, and this is one of my favorite episodes I've heard. It kind of encompasses so many different parts of why that show is great. So, Protecting Neck episode 201. Holy shit. Definitely check it out. Especially in retrospect. Oh, also I should mention, on the more technical side, he gave some really interesting insight into the first 3 fights of the night, since he has trained with, since essentially it's a bunch of Vegas-based fighters. It was Roxanne Modafferi. It was the first night of the fight was the dude who Dan has trained under and sparred a whole bunch that ended up he had Eric Nixick in the corner, and that was one that was stopped in the second round, in between rounds. And then there was the third fight, which was the I would need to pull up the names again, because names are starting to blur together on some of these fucking pandemic cards. But it was the dude who absolutely smoked what's the station, like 40 seconds on short notice. But anyway, it was a bunch of dudes that Dan had trained with and knew in depth kind of what their game plans were. And so it was cool to hear kind of him talk about working with them and training with them and kind of what to expect from them. And then to see how that either did play out or didn't play out in accordance with it was really interesting. And also Dan straight up he didn't give away some dude's game plan, but like he was like, I know for a fact they're talking about this aspect of the game plan, and a spoiler alert, that aspect of the game plan never even took place in the fight, which is interesting, but it also is kind of says a lot about the dude who won. So I don't want to give it away, because that's like, it's not trade secret territory, but if you want to hear it, go listen to it, because it's very interesting. So, but yeah, really good episode 201 of the Protect Your Neck podcast with Dan Tom.
Nice.
Let's see. Did you have any other catches for this week?
Yeah, I had the Co-Main Event podcast is solid.
Yeah. Here, I got the episode number right here. It is episode 406.
Yeah,
Dueling Lawnmowers, I believe, is the subtitle.
Yeah. They discussed Marvin Vettori and his saga against Carl Robertson, and how that played out, which was interesting. That was, a week ago?
Yeah. They also talked about how Marvin Vettori, with the fucking terrible Pulver style joke, where he says he's autistic when it comes to training his post-fight speech.
He did say that.
It's not good.
And they're like, is it because he doesn't really speak English? We're like, well...
No, I don't think it is. Based on everything I've heard out of Marvin
Because no
Vettori's
non-English
mouth,
speaker would just legitimately talk about autism.
Right. No, the pro is Marvin Vettori. First, you have to have been at least arguably diagnosed as Otzi, and second, you have to call it being Otzi. That's the secret, dude. Chris, I would normally not. By the way, first off, hashtag Team Spectrum. I would not normally use that. This is a perfect segue for shots. Actually, I'm not even gonna throw that podcast.
Cancel culture. Hashtag
Dude.
Pulver is over.
100%. And also, hopefully, no one figures out the reference I just made to another podcast who makes similar jokes. But to be fair, it's because we are arguably hashtag Team Spectrum, and have been told by people we are probably on the spectrum.
I mean, I don't take that as an insult.
No, like qualified therapists have told me I'm probably on the spectrum, and I'm like, yeah, bro, probably. But anyway, back to what we were talking about. Co-Main Event. Yeah, that was a really good episode. I really liked the two things that really stood out to me on that was the how they discussed how kind of pointless the GOAT discussion talk is. Which, I mean, you and I have talked about forever, but like nobody has the same qualifications for what it means to be the GOAT, and so it's all just like semantic arguments on top of semantic arguments on top of semantic arguments. So it's like, who the fuck cares? But the other thing that really stood out that I liked is them talking about all of the Joe Silva stuff that's come out over the last week or two.
I mean, I have my 3 GOATs.
I mean. So we know 2, but why is the third one able to be on the list if they failed the drug test?
No, so I'm glad you said that because these are my 3 GOATs. I got George St. Pierre,
DJ,
Jose Aldo.
Oh, Jose and DJ.
Demetrius Johnson.
Yeah.
Amanda Nunes. And Fedor and
I think you're on 6 now.
I want to say Stipe. If he beats DC again, Stipe's on our list, in my opinion, because he basically beat all the heavyweights.
It's got to be up there.
It's got to be up there. Other than that, I'm trying to think. Habib is near there. We'll see if he dominates Gaethje. Habib is on the list. Like, that dude is on the list.
Yeah, if he smashes Gaethje, that would be...
He's on the list.
Jesus.
For GOAT. Like, come on. You can't be 29-0 and, like, you don't even bleed. Like, come on.
His hardest fight was Gleison Tibau, who, I mean, he might have lost that fight, but it wasn't like he was getting shit kicked.
Yeah.
If he was just, he just wasn't getting takedowns.
If Habib literally smashes Gaethje after we saw Gaethje to Ferguson, dude, Habib is one of the GOATs. Like, you can't even dispute that. Like...
And, like,
even
not undisputed clean. Like, I don't think anybody really argues that Habib was pretty fucking clean. As clean as anyone, anyway.
Yeah.
Cleaner than GSP, arguably. Because GSP is... Well, let's just say he was a big fan of the baby oil.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are my GOATs. Sorry, anyways, you were saying...
No, that was what I had. Is the GOAT discussion was interesting, and then CME talking about all the Joe Silva stuff. I thought was pretty fascinating. Do you have anything else for that co-main event podcast episode?
So yeah, they talked about their, like you were just saying, their GOAT conversation. They said, some people make the argument for Conor McGregor based on him bringing in money. It's like, and I've said this time and time again to my coworker Jack, who's a very big Conor stan.
As you guys have heard in our chat in the past.
But he also admits that too. He's
Jack
also a casual for the most part.
Wait, are you saying a Conor fan could be a casual? That's a crazy take, Chris.
That's not mutually exclusive, right?
No, definitely not. Hey, I'll give him this credit. Not all Conor fans are casuals.
That's actually a thing.
But all casuals are Conor fans.
But it is possible to be a Conor fan and not be a casual, though. It just means
Sure. I mean, it was early on.
It just means you like Conor when he's in the octagon. When he's on the octagon, you're like, who's that?
Yeah, or you don't care about allegations.
That's what it means. The point I was getting to is I don't consider him a GOAT as far as, when he's fought. He has that sort of status because he's an icon, more or less, from bringing in money and bringing attention to the sport. I'll give him that. Yeah. Like, if you land a fight against Floyd Mayweather, you're clearly doing something right. Other than that, I want to see the guy fight. I wish he would have defended his belts, but it's all about the money, and, I don't blame him. He's the A side. As far as what he's doing now, you're not going to ever see him fight, through the ladder.
You probably could have ended that sentence after you're never going to see him fight.
Well, I'm getting at. But yeah, next time you can see that motherfucker fight is... This is what it comes down to. If Gaethje beats Habib, it's Gaethje versus Conor. If Habib wins, Conor.
It's Habib versus Conor. Yeah.
No. I'm saying, like, if Habib destroys Gaethje, Conor wants none of that. There's no...
100% Conor will take a beating for a big chunk of money.
I
promise you, because that dude doesn't give a fuck about.
Because see, I thought he did. I mean, besides the money, I feel like he wants to take fights he thinks he can win. That's what I was saying. Like, because if Gaethje beats Habib, 1,000%, Dana's doing Gaethje versus Conor, because I feel like Conor's like, I can knock this dude out in the first round if I clip him.
If Gaethje wins, then 100%.
That's my point. I'm saying, like, if Khabib absolutely destroys Gaethje, it wouldn't surprise me if Conor doesn't get the Khabib fight. But it's Dana, so who knows?
We'll probably see fucking Conor fight Pettis or something. Fucking Khabib wins.
Yeah, right. And then Dana would be like, Pettis is the former champion.
Yeah, he was on a fucking Wheaties box for you people who don't remember. Like, oh yeah, a decade ago.
Or Conor will fight RDA. Former champion. They were supposed to fight.
Finally running it back.
The
The most anticipated fight of the last 20 years.
Remember Conor being El Chapo? Like, what?
Yeah, you're like, oh god, let's not remember Conor being El Chapo.
El
Fucking
Chapo,
manic
the child
coke
rapist and murderer, that guy. Yeah.
Also, while Conor was just on mad coke and manic as fuck, allegedly.
He'll do nothing. Yeah.
Do you have to say allegedly when he's hanging out with fucking drug dealers?
Still, we're just being fair to this. Allegedly.
Due process. Speaking of which, how are those allegations going in Ireland? Speaking of due process,
I haven't looked at that.
That's my point. Is nothing's ever gonna come of anything because money wins always. Fucking world is broken. Anyway, so speaking of money winning always, I actually have another catch for this week as well. This honestly could have been a can't miss. I was thinking about having it a can't miss. It probably should be a can't miss. But I'm doing it in this segment, so take from that what you will. But I absolutely love this podcast in general. But episode 34 of Show Money was really, really, really good. If you guys don't know, since I feel like I am one of... They always joke about how they have... Well, first, they used to joke about how they have 10 listeners. Now they joke about how they have 20. And how all their listeners are fucking fight nerds, or economic fight nerds, which I guess I'm now in the category of, even though I only understand half the shit they talk about. But Show Money, episode 34, was really, really good. That is the show hosted by Paul Gift, and John Nash and Jason Cruz. Paul Gift, who is, I believe, I know he works for, I'm now panicking and worried I'm going to say the wrong thing. I keep wanting to say he works for The Economist, but I know that's not right. Paul Gift of MMA Analytics works for Forbes. Jesus Christ. He's an economist with Forbes, if I remember right. And let's see. John Nash, of course, working with Bloody Elbow. He does their financials, or he's the financials writer. And then Jason Cruz, of course, combat sports lawyer. And man, you will never learn more about the financials and the business side of MMA than you will by listening to this podcast. And this is just another example of it. This goes really in depth, mostly on all the fighter pay discussions that are happening right now, and they kind of have in-depth discussions around whether or not. Here, let me take another sip since I'm trying to get to Jason Cruz triple Henny level right now. They're having a lot of discussions around whether or not they actually think that an association or a union would even necessarily change the way fighter pay works inherently just by having bargaining power, because really a lot of that bargaining power would require them to either have a strike, which a strike, you're always going to have scabs, even the NHL and NFL, or was it the NHL when they, or was it the, am I thinking
NFL
MLB?
Scabs.
Was it NFL? There's like 10%
when they
scabs.
In like 1987.
Yeah, something like that. And they had like,
that.
It was like 10% of the league ended up being scabs, and that was enough for them to be able to keep putting games on.
Yeah,
because then they still had like 10% names, and then they could still like kind of get enough viewers to pass. And so there's a lot of interesting discussions around that, and like whether or not John Nash thinks that like kind of what options would actually affect the revenue split versus what options are good options but not necessarily going to change the way the pay structure works currently. And it was really, really interesting. I mean, I heard stuff, and I've listened to the show for, I don't know, years now, but I heard them talk about stuff that I haven't heard them go into as much depth on. Like, for example, John Nash brought up the point, like, what if the fighter created an association and then they had that association create a title?
Okay.
So then the association could essentially say, hey, we think we have our rankings as an association. We say these are the best 2 fighters on the planet. Who wants to pay for this fight to happen? And like whoever was the highest bidder or whatever sanctioning body wanted to put on that fight, who could make it happen, could then have that title, and then they could carry forth that title going forward. And like obviously there's all kinds of red tape and stuff that would have to happen as a result of that. But it's an interesting discussion to have. Like, what if, another example he used is like, what if the MMA JA had a rankings panel that was global across the sport? And,
that'd be fantastic.
And all fighters just recognize that as the real rankings. Because then you could actually have discussions about like, hey, what if the MMA JA had a, hey, here are the 2 people that we as journalists say are the 2 best in the sport. We want this fight to happen. Does any company want to put it on? And we'll put this belt on. We'll put our recognized rankings belt on the line. Like those kinds of interesting discussions that like I just never heard talked about. And there's so much red tape and so many things would have to happen for any of that to actually take place. But I've just never heard it talked about. So I just found it interesting. I believe he said it was as a result of the oh man, it's a really good boxing podcast that I can't remember the name of. That if you look up John Nash on a boxing podcast recently, I'm sure it will come up. John Nash Financials Boxing Podcast. Let me see if I can remember the name. Boxing Esquire Podcast. I believe it's episode, I want to say it was 38, unless he's been on more recently, which it looks like he might have actually. But anyway, he said he originally talked about it more in depth there, kind of about the boxing side of things, like asking why there isn't more of that on the boxing side. And then he kind of brought it into this discussion, but I just found it very interesting and stuff I hadn't heard of before. After that, they talk a lot about how the ESPN guaranteed pay-per-view deal is essentially killing all the individual fighters' negotiating power. Because, like, the UFC just gets a revenue split up to a certain amount of pay-per-view buys. So, like, if John Jones or Jorge Masvidal don't want to fight, like, unless ESPN gives a shit, the UFC doesn't give a shit. Because, like, they get their guaranteed pay-per-view anyway. So, like, yeah, they're not making extra money on top. But, like, who gives a fuck if ESPN doesn't care? There went my drink. Fuck.
It's funny I can't see, but I heard that sound like clearly a beer dropping.
No,
I just hope it wasn't in a glass.
No, it was in a glass, but I caught it like halfway down, so all it did was drench my leg and my desk, which is great. Especially since ginger beers, definitely ginger beer and rum and lime isn't really sticky.
Oh, that's right.
Chris?
You're having a dark and stormy.
Yeah, that's not my favorite. Okay, sorry, mopping up. Okay, here we go. Okay. Now that my desk is not currently under ginger beer waters right now. Jesus Christ, that was a catastrophe. Let's see, where was I? Oh, right, the guaranteed pay-per-view deal is essentially killing all negotiating power, which has got to be frustrating and kind of holding things up. And then they get into a little bit more detail about the sketchy finances of one and how like Chatri and people are coming out being like, I don't know how this could, they're seeing these or I don't know why they're misreporting these numbers when John Nash and everybody is reporting literally off of the numbers that Chatri put out, which is like sketchy shit. And then lastly, they talk about there was an interesting case that went really poorly for the person. This is going to be so in-depth and, like, I recommend you go listen to the last, like, probably year's worth of Show Money podcast, which is probably, like, 10 or so, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But essentially, there's a big moment in the antitrust case that just happened that could affect the antitrust case, I should say. Because there's another case that has the expert witness for the plaintiffs, which is the UFC fighters, guys like John Fitch and all them, who are currently in the antitrust suit against the UFC. And as a part of that expert witness and I believe the lawyer that is also working their case just had like a big run-in with a judge where they kind of lied or fudged numbers, which like is a real bad look for, and then the lawyer then tried to kind of like argue that he didn't fuck up the numbers, and the judge got real fucking angry, and that's public record, and now can be sourced by anyone else. And so that'll be interesting to see how that affects things. But again, this is like very nerdy, legal, economic kind of discussion. So if you're not into the business side of it, I don't think it's at all for you. But holy fuck, is it fascinating if you are into all that, any or all of that kind of aspect of the sport. So highly recommend it because it is. Man, there isn't another show like it. I can tell you that. Nobody else is doing a show like Show Money is. At least not that detailed and that nerdy about it. So I love that shit. And I highly recommend it. Show Money, episode 34 on Bloody Elbow Presents.
Nice. That sounds rad. And we always need kind of like that alternative angle. From a podcast perspective, I know you've shouted them out before. I've briefly discussed them when you've mentioned them, and it's important just for the topic.
Yeah, and it's really,
as I could say.
Yeah, it's really, really informative. Like more than that's why we gave it the most informative MMA podcast last year, which Nash made fun of us for. He's like, Jesus, we put out like 6 episodes. You guys gave us most informative. That's a bad sign for the industry. It's like, dude, you are not wrong. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if that's what I took from it essentially. But yeah, man, it's real interesting. So definitely recommend it. Do you have any can't miss episodes for this week?
Yeah, it's the obvious one.
It's the same one I have, probably?
Yeah.
Go ahead, get into it.
Yeah, Fight Business number 6 with Michael Fidel and Josh Gross.
And Patrick Auger.
And Patrick, thank you.
Yeah, and that was, you guys actually heard on the intro, the clip of Josh Gross in the intro from this podcast.
I probably don't have as thorough notes as you do. I listened about 90% of this while I was doing other things as well, unfortunately.
Right.
But
that's how it goes. But it was really good, right?
Yeah. I so far I written down. Josh talked about his departure from the Athletic and how that went.
Yeah, which big shouts out to, I think it was Richard in our chat last week who brought that up, which I somehow missed in the first round of news that Josh was one of the people let go, which like, man, how you gonna let Josh Gross go? He's the best in the business.
Yeah. It's
actually full disclosure, my subscription for The Athletic that I got for free through the CME Patreon expired this weekend, and I want to renew, but not if they're going to just fucking immediately fire anyone else from The Athletic. So I'm at like a weird point where I'm like, I want to renew with you guys, but I don't know that I can do a year, because if you dump all the MMA people, I want to dump your fucking whole model. Then again, who knows if that whole model is so dependent on a pay structure that, like, who the fuck knows how that's going to work going forward with economics being what they are right now. But anyway.
Josh says he considers it a time and place moment. As far as him and 4 other journalists were let go, he said it's just one of those things where they had to let people go, and his name just kind of got brought up with it. Yep. I don't know if he really gave or cited an example as to particularly why he was let go, if there was a reason behind it.
I mean, there seems to just be cuts across the board.
I think he said it was just basically random. It was just kind of more or less, okay, we need to cut people, and your name fell on the hat.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Which makes sense, because I don't know why, if anyone would just decide to cut him, and I don't think that's the case.
I mean, they're making hard cuts, and like, I don't know what they're based on, but they're making hard cuts at The Athletic. I mean, if you're dropping Chuck Mendenhall, Chad Dundas, and
I think it comes down to you just draw a name in the hat, and it's like, all right, well, he's gone.
That or it's like people who have clearly gained hard traction that is probably demonstrable through like social media numbers or something like that. Like, I would think might be part of it, but it's hard to really tell.
He asked the question, is freeform journalism dead? Are we now in the age of clicks? I mean, freeform journalism, in my opinion, only really works as far as how loose and flexible your editor-in-chief is.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
well, or your editor-in-chief or the people above them, right?
Yeah, or the people above them, and
Like your outlet as a whole.
Yeah,
Or more importantly, your outlet's relationship with sponsors, it seems like.
that too, because as far as anyone who knows Basic Journalism 101, the main stream of revenue comes from advertisements. That's what pays the bills. That's what keeps the ball rolling. So, yeah, freeform journalism isn't dead necessarily. It's just, it's just really dependent on whether or not the publication or medium that you represent or work for can allow you to it can allow expression, really, while being objective. I'm trying to answer this in a
very politically correct and well-rounded approach.
Freeform technically means it's a bunch of opinion pieces, right? When you're being free,
generally, or it's like or it's hard-hitting journalism,
or it's basically like hard-hitting journalism, meaning like
investigative.
Okay, we're giving you full range of, you can investigate this story and you can
report you report, kind of thing.
Report on what you find. You can't necessarily report on your personal beliefs because you're doing your job objectively, but freeform, it would be like if someone goes, okay, this is the topic, just tell us what you think. Okay,
so I didn't know that. So freeform is generally more op-ed related rather than like... I'm sure there's always exceptions too, right?
I'm still rusty on this, so I can't necessarily just say that. But
I'm asking you to explain it while you're hammered. So that's part of it.
When someone says freeform journalism, freeform to me means you're going against kind of what like your editors kind of telling you to do, as far as like staying in your lane. As far as freeform means to me, when I think of freeform, it means, hey boss, I'm gonna go ahead and find us a story. And I'll report on it. That's what freeform means to me. So, I'm probably late and kind of rusty on what I really should.
Well, and I'm sure that it's a wide enough term that I'm sure it has like a couple different ways it's used.
I think what the point he was bringing across, as far as mixed martial arts, freeform. I don't want to say it's dead, but in mixed martial arts, it's definitely controlled as far as like what you can really report on.
Right.
Like we've talked about this.
Well, and op-ed pieces are generally nowadays like less
let me look this
actual
up.
opinions. Well, anyway, while you're looking that up, I got some other points on it that we can we'll loop back around on. But
this is what I learned in school, and remember, I'm relearning shit. So someone says the common types of journalism. There's investigative, watchdog, meaning as far as like you're trying to feed everyone and frame on what they're supposed to hear, right? You're kind of just, if President Trump is trending for a certain thing he said, watchdog journalism means you're reporting on what did Trump just say. So now you're writing about that. That's like watchdog journalism. So then there's online, it says broadcast, we know what that is. That's, the news. Opinion, op-eds, right? Sports journalism, trade, entertainment. I'm trying to think of what freeform.
Well, and freeform, I think, is one of those things where like it probably falls into a lot of those categories, depending on how you're writing the stories for those categories, kind of thing.
Yeah, and like I said, the way I interpreted freeform is you're going about looking for, a topic, but in your own way, but you're still being objective about it. Because I'm looking up right now, and there's really not really a straight answer.
And also it seems like it's a big catch-all kind of phrase. It seems like.
Yeah.
But another thing I really found interesting in general about that is just kind of Josh's. I always have respected this about Josh, and this is why I along with I feel like a lot of people in the sport have always referred to as Josh as like. Josh and Loretta Hunt are like the two real journalists that were in this sport early, and Loretta Hunt always defers to Josh as like, Josh is the dude who was like bringing up fucking ethics guidelines and stuff to people, and like handing them books on ethics guidelines, which like no one was doing at the time, which shouts out to San Diego State for their journalism program. Produced both Josh Gross and Ben Folks and Chris Medaffer. So shouts out to
far,
them.
right?
Yeah. That is a hell of a list as far as I'm concerned.
I saw too. What I like what he said is he asked, "What's the best story and how do we frame this?" And I'm glad he wasn't afraid to say how do we frame this, because when you talk about framing stories, kind of catering to your specific audience, whether you're and I'll go, and I know we go into politics, but for example, if you're gonna go far left,
we didn't go into politics fucking lately. I'm ready to burn the whole fucking place down. But yeah.
Right. So example wise, right? Say you go far left, you go MSNBC is gonna go, okay, well we're gonna frame it this certain way where we get views based on socially and ethically. We're gonna frame, and I'm not gonna actually cite examples because we can't take a stance.
It's
so
a pretty easy example. There's a lot of really easy.
You can imagine what
let's just say
say
certain people want to have a mask, certain people don't want to have a mask, and Joe Rogan wants to be a big baby.
Yeah, and so you get MSNBC on the far left, and on the far right you get Fox News, and both media, which is plural, that's why I say mediums, right? They kind of do their job called framing. They go ahead and they both report a story. Both stories have the same core information that you need to read, but they're spun, whether you're spinning a web or kind of framing, hence the term framing, they're framed in a certain way where the people who listen to Fox News will react to it a certain way that Fox News wants to react, and the people who listen to MSNBC will react in that same manner that they want to react.
Well, and the problem...
and then you get people in the middle, kind of like, and I'm not trying to say CNN's always in the middle, because they're kind of on each side too. But generally speaking, CNN is kind of in the middle. It's complicated.
Yeah, and even then, like nowadays, not
they're
as
suspect
much,
too. But
no, I agree. And what's frustrating is a lot of dullard.
Go to Reuters or someone from Europe.
Yeah. Especially
I'm just
nowadays.
telling you right now.
Don't look
Reuters.
Don't look at American news.
BBC.
Even then, like, really, anybody outside of the U.S. is a better source on U.S. news right now than the U.S. is. And I'm saying that coming from a city where we had a giant fucking area of San Diego burning recently, and, like, there was no active news coverage for it. They all turned off their cameras and went home for a couple hours and then came back later and reported it after the burning ended. So that's how San Diego news coverage goes. Shouts out to the military being in this city. Definitely not related. And what's frustrating is a lot of dullards when it comes to news. Like, both angles could be right. They could be stating facts. But they're just spinning it and wording it in a way that changes the narrative. We've seen that over and over again throughout all the, we'll call them riots, but really throughout all the protest stuff, where it's like the definition of violent protesters is real convenient depending on who's writing it. So, anyway. Boy. All right. So, speaking of, there's a segue. I was going to say a good segue. I don't know that it's a good segue, but it's a segue. All right. My other catch this week is the race representation and culture in combat sports discussion that was had on the... Oh my God. Why can I not remember? Give me a second. Where is it? Why can I not? It's the writing and fighting. Oh, it's Nancy. I fucking could not remember Nancy's name. Jesus Christ. Nancy Kidder, who we've talked about in the past, does the writing and fighting panel for... What university is it? I forget. It's a university... I've talked about it in the past. Go look up Nancy Kidder and you'll figure it out. But she's been doing awesome panels, basically online panels for her writing and fighting course that she's been doing, and she had an awesome panel on this with people like Angie Hill, Julie Kedzie, Josh Rosenblatt, Sean Black, Tanisha Singleton, go follow Tanisha Singleton. She has had some of my favorite fucking content on these discussions, and she's just fucking dope in general. Like, her Twitter is fire, and really slept on. So I highly recommend it. But it's really hard discussions that no one's having, and it's very cool to see not only someone not directly in the industry, but a professor stepping up and asking for these conversations not only be held, but be held publicly for the just knowledge sake. And that's why I've spoken with Nancy. I need to get back to Nancy because she did DM me again. I've had a crazy couple weeks, as we know. But I need to get back to her because she's actually talked to us about maybe doing something in the future, but full disclosure and all that. But it's just interesting, fucking cool discussions on topics and big panel discussions that, like, this is the kind of stuff you normally only see, like, if Luke Thomas decides to post a panel he did for a class at, like, some university or stuff like that. Or, like, Josh Gross, another dude who's like, hey, I did an interview for a class that they had a video of, so if anybody's interested. Which, like, you don't get a lot of that kind of the academic side of not only lectures, but panels and discussions. So I've always found those the most interesting. Like, I always loved the old Hunter S. Thompson panels or kind of talks he would do in front of colleges and shit like that. I always find that stuff fascinating. So you get a lot of, like, questions that not only those people don't answer a lot, but just discussions that are generally uncomfortable, but that's the point of having the discussion, you know? And I respect it and I love that shit. I think the world needs more of it. So, yeah. Can't recommend this highly enough. The Race Representation and Culture in Combat Sports podcast. And, yeah, man. I can't recommend it highly enough.
That sounds really informative and just interesting.
Yeah. It's a hard discussion to have. And it's one that, especially in combat sports where we are by far, I say this as a white male in the industry, we are by far a white male dominated industry, and we need different voices because that's who I want to listen to. I'm tired of listening to me. I want to listen to people who aren't like me because that's how I learn. Like, I agree. I've always found the most interesting discussions I've ever heard are between people who are nothing like me because it's shit I don't hear, you know? So yeah, man. I just I want to give that a big shot, and I can't recommend all the panels that Nancy does enough, but this is a really strong one and one that I think will I think it will age. I think history will look very kindly upon this panel, so something to take a look at. All right, now that I got through the important stuff, Chris, did you listen to any new shows this week?
Not really.
So I listened to a new show, but I'm going to tell everybody ahead of time I did not do my full homework or due diligence. So I have some questions about this show, and I love Keith Schillen. Keith Schillen knows this. I talked to Keith. We've talked in our DMs a couple times. He's a good dude, and I really like him. So he now has a show on the Loudmouth MMA network called Schillen and Duffy, it's Keith Schillen and, oh God, I almost said Todd Duffy, but it's not Todd Duffy, it's Ben Duffy from Sherdog. And they basically did a recap show for the I versus Cavillo card. And I really liked it. I like Keith Schillen, I like Ben Duffy, so it makes sense that I would like that show. Just like a fun recap show. I think that was their first episode, I believe, so I'm not entirely sure what it's going to look like going forward, but just like off the top, just like a really solid recap kind of podcast. I would put it in the same kind of feel as like somewhere between a 6th round retro and the other show that I'm kind of curious about that I don't. So TJ Santis had a show called DeSantis and Duffy, and now Keith Schillen has a show called Schillen and Duffy. Both were with Ben Duffy. I haven't seen DeSantis and Duffy in a while. I just haven't heard anything about it. So I'm not throwing any shade. I'm not saying there's anything bad going on. I'm just surprised to see that come up on the feed. And I need to reach out to Keith and maybe I guess Ben or TJ too, since they're all very nice and they all respond to me when I ask them questions. But I just thought it was an interesting thing, but I liked it a lot, so I'll definitely listen to it going forward. But it caught me off guard, though. I mean, it makes sense because I believe Ben Duffy works at SureDog as well with Keith. Because I'm pretty sure Keith is still at SureDog. Yeah, Ben is. And I believe Keith is still. Although, who knows with everything going on right now. But, yeah, I just found that interesting, so. I like that a lot. They talk a lot about Vittoria's pace and pressure. They talk about how rough getting through the I versus Cavillo card was, that kind of stuff. So, really good. I liked it quite a bit, and I'll definitely listen to it. Oh, God. Fucking poor Jessica I. Okay. Well, other than that,
it's okay though. She almost made weight, so she's got a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, dog. She it's a fine line between pulling down on the hoop and pulling out your titty. You know, it's a real fine line you got to ride to make weight. Ask Gina Carano. Wait, no, Gina Carano just almost got fucking exposed by her dad that one time. I forgot. Anyway, Chris, that GIF does not age well. Chris, do you have any honorable mention MMA podcasts you wanted to give a shout out to?
Let's see. I don't know, man. I admit I didn't really listen to shit.
That's all good. I got a bunch.
I need to readjust my feed because most of the stuff I listen to are a bunch of shills and fake journalists, right?
Well, you know what? I will send you a list of. You know what I'll do is I will post on our Twitter a list of all the podcasts I'm currently subscribed to, and like I don't know. I'll figure out a way to actually post that. It probably won't be clickable. I guess I can put a link to our. You know what? I'll do an article on the website where you guys. I'll link to it there also, but I'll just do like a screenshot of all the list of shows, so that way anybody out there looking for new ones. That's generally. I always have like the ones I'm always on, and then I'm just always on Twitter looking for like, oh, these 3 random accounts I follow all have new shows that started this week. A little bit less of that lately, which has been both good and bad. But I feel like we're starting to see. I feel like we're going to see a lot of podcasts in this year. It's starting to feel that way. Like I've seen a lot of people not necessarily stop putting out content, but just fall off hard on putting out content. So that'll be interesting. Anyway, the Man and the Myth podcast I did mention. They did their So I Guess This Is Goodbye episode with Chuck, Sean, and Chris, where they say farewell. It's like 20 minutes or so. Talk about how it kind of came to an end abruptly, and they talk about hopefully they're thinking about maybe trying to do a Patreon going forward, down the line. It's not gonna be immediate, but there's like discussions around it. So I really hope they do that because, yeah, man. First off, I want Chris to be on a goddamn show. I don't care what show Chris is producing. I want Chris to be producing a fucking MMA podcast. If he's not in the industry, I feel like we're doing something wrong as an industry. So, Jesus Christ. I'm just going to start recommending TJ Santos. Well, I already do recommend TJ Santos to anybody who says that, or any fighter who says they need a podcast. But I'm going to start adding Chris to that list. Somebody find me Chris's Twitter tag, and I'll start doing that. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but I hope they do pick that up going forward. The fight site, holy shit. So I should, you know what? I'm actually in retrospect bumping this up to a catch for me, because I forgot this really should be a catch. So technically a catch for me, even though I'm bringing it up later. The fight site interview with Gray Maynard was really fucking good.
Oh, I heard about.
He's been everywhere this week.
So yeah.
He's been talking about Fighter Pay just about everywhere, and man, he said some really, really fascinating and enlightening things in this episode. And it's hard listening to how bad he was fucked over. It's harder listening to it in that, like, man, there's some moments where he stutters pretty hard or slurs pretty hard that, like, some of the words he's been through, I'm not trying to cast aspersions or say anything out of line or anything. Could have just been what I was hearing, and I could have misinterpreted it. But, like, man, it did not make parts of this one easier. And Gray's just out here having hard conversations that people need to listen to. He's talking about fighter, like the UFC intentionally keeping fighters paycheck to paycheck. The UFC also, he mentions, signed him to an 8-fight contract, and then after they did that, then within a couple months, they asked him to retire, essentially locking him up to a contract that he could never fulfill, and then telling him they want him to retire, which is like, Jesus, that is.
It checks out.
I mean, it checks out, but like in the darkest of fucking ways.
Yeah.
Gray at one point asked the question, "Why is it okay to starve a person just to see a fight happen?" Which is like, Jesus, like it's a very, very, very hard discussion that he's having, and I respect the fuck out of him for saying it. And the other thing I really respect from Gray is he says over and over again, like, I could never ask current rostered fighters to talk about this shit because it's not fair to them because they literally are paycheck to paycheck and have to feed their fucking families. So like I can't ever ask them to say anything, but like it's really bad. And he also, the one other thing that I thought was really cool to hear him say, he's like, man, people don't realize, but like people like like Ali and the Diaz brothers standing up for what they believe in really suffer the consequences for it and deserve more respect for it. Which, like, Gray Maynard, a dude who fought Nate Diaz, and he's like, he made a point to say about the Diaz brothers, like, they are absolutely some of the people in this sport we need to hold in high regard because of their stance and their unwillingness to engage in bad acting from a corporation. So yeah, really interesting, hard conversation that Gray's having, and that absolutely should have been a catch for me. I apologize, I totally fucked that up. Let's see, the other Fight Site episode or podcast this week that I really liked was the Fight Site MMA podcast, episode 16, which was fucking delightful. It was a look back at some of the picks that they got the most wrong. I need to double check, but I believe it's Ram and Danny Martin who did this one. Fight Site MMA 16. I just want to make sure they didn't sub anybody for anybody. But I'm pretty positive it's Ram and Danny Martin. Yep, it is. And it's so good. It's just really cool hearing them talk about like picks they got horrifically wrong and how that was the case. So stuff like Aldo versus Holloway, Whitaker versus Gastelum, Figueiredo versus Benavidez. It's just interesting hearing them kind of like take a look back at it and trying to assess like why did I get this wrong? Like, was it just I got the pick wrong, but I got the analysis correct? It just played out slightly differently. Did I get the pick right and the analysis completely wrong? And it just happened to work out in my favor. Like, I believe that they cited Volkov versus Derek Lewis as one of those, where he's like, I got that analysis completely wrong, but also Derek Lewis just slept the dude at the end, so it worked out fine in my pick. So I thought that was really good. It's a really good episode. The Ceremonial Weigh-In podcast, UFC Vegas 3, which is Angie Hill's podcast with her husband, Adam, I believe.
That's right.
Fucking great. She talks about just getting a bout agreement in the mail. She also talks about how she owns the UFC hot dog brander and how next time Dana fucks with her, she's just going to brand Dana in the neck. To which I believe the quote was her husband said, "How are you going to brand Dana in the neck when he has such high collars?" She's like, "You're right, I just got to go for the forehead." So it's just a lot of fun. They also talk a lot about MikePerryIsABum.com. And
that's so good and great. Shouts out to Darren Till.
Dude, so good. They also have a review of Den of Thieves. They talk about how they didn't like the game Outer Worlds. And they talk about Island. No, they hated it. They thought it was like bunk Fallout, basically.
Okay. I thought it was great, but I thought it was too short.
Yeah. Well, they were like, it feels like Fallout. It would probably be great if you never played Fallout and then played that game, because...
That's fair, actually.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And they're also, like, Angie is the biggest Fallout nerd, so it makes sense to me. Care Don't Care for UFC on ESPN 10 was really, really good. John Nash, Steffi Haynes, and Eugene S. Robinson. Just a really fun episode, and I definitely recommend it. Co-main event live chat for June 17th was really solid, talking a lot about Joe Silva stories. And MikePerryIsABum.com. Chad Dundas also has been going pretty hard about journalists who just cover fights week to week, like nothing's happening. Both him and Ben have been, and it's really cool. Also, they did mention on that podcast that they are actually going to start doing a lot more articles and stuff out off their own website. They're going to kind of build their website out and start doing stuff in-house, which I'm very excited for. I think that's going to be cool as shit. I think we're going to see some very, very hard-hitting, interesting shit coming out of comainevent.com, so go check that out. And I believe it's comainevent.com. And I believe if you go to comaineventpodcast.com, it might send you to a porn site. Is what they said. Let me double check.
I think I remember them saying that. That's hilarious.
Let me double check right now. Yep, Pleasant Babes, I believe is the porn site. So careful about that one. It's a little different. Let's see. What the Heck, episode 12, Mike Heck's show. Mike Heck is essentially doing the new interview show on MMA fighting. Chris, you should check this show out because you like the interview shows if it wasn't hosted by Access Ariel, generally.
Yeah, right.
But, listen to this. So Mike Heck had an interview with Peter Yan. He had an interview with Cynthia Calvillo, Kama Worthy, Luis Pena, Mickey Gall, Frankie Edgar, and Calvin Cater.
Okay.
And, he talks to Mickey Gall about drinking Broken Skull IPA and his fight against Mike Perry. Talks to Kama Worthy about Black Wall Street and the country's history of racial injustice. Talks to Luis Pena about his move to ATT. Talks to Calvin Cater about his fight against Ige. Talks to Yana about Cejudo retiring. I think you would totally dig that show. It's called What the Heck.
Yeah, I've listened to it. I've listened to What the Heck with Mike Heck, I think maybe twice.
And he's starting to ramp it up into I think it feels like MMA fighting is trying to turn that into the new big interview show, especially now that they've gotten rid of Eurobash as well. It feels like because Eurobash kind of took over that slot after Luke Thomas left, where they would do big. Here's 8 interviews we got lined up, and it feels like Mike Heck they're really trying to build him into the next dude who does that. And I like Mike Heck a lot. Apart from him just being super nice to us over the years, he also just does great work and he asks interesting questions too. I don't find him just softballing as much shit. And I don't know. They had a really interesting discussion with Kama Worthy about Black Wall Street. And you can hear me?
I can hear you. All I know is I gotta piss my pants.
Okay, well, it's good that my internet came right back in as you said that. The last one that I have, since my internet's going all over the place and Chris has to piss his pants, as you guys heard, is Anakin Florian, episode 254. Speaking of pants pissing, they keep making mad talks about this fucking alleged goddamn power hour they're gonna do when they never did the first power hour. So I don't know what the fuck is going on. But, I heard they're looking for a beer sponsor for a power hour. So, Chris, if your brewery wants to sponsor the Anakin Florian podcast for a power hour, you should
as
get
cool
on
as
that.
it would be, they would not be down.
No, absolutely not. No, it's not exactly your brewery style. And also, I don't think they're trying to drink fucking... actually, you know what?
Yeah,
I wish they were trying to drink fucking 9% stouts. That would be great. But yeah, no... All in all, it was a good episode.
Spoiler.
Yeah. All in all, that's all every brewery is.
Every good brewery.
Yeah. For real. But the Anakin Florian for 254, the one thing that really stood out and the reason why I recommend it is they had Bilal Muhammad on at the end, who I'm a big fan of. I've been a big Bilal Muhammad fan since I saw him absolutely box a dude's face off in Titan way back in the day.
I remember I became a fan of his UFC debut against fucking Alan Joban. That shit was fire.
Dude, I love pressure forward dudes who are just bring a fucking lunch pail and have a work rate all day. That's my shit.
Can you say that he faces the pain?
Oh, absolutely. Fucking Jesus.
And he also just bleeds?
Yeah, 100%. But no, it was really cool hearing him, and it sounds like Annik's trying to get him to start a podcast and trying to hook that up, which is cool. Because I'd love to hear Bilal on a podcast. He's a really smart dude, and I think I'm a big Bilal fan, so I think that'd be cool as hell. So that's what I got. So we'll go ahead and wrap this segment here, and then Chris, we'll be back here for a couple minutes to talk about this card that happened last weekend?
Yeah.
Because we went real long on this first segment.
We'll keep it brief. I don't have too much to say. I did watch the majority of the card. It was a decent card. Yeah.
I liked it. Yeah, it was fun. Like, the main event got a little rough at parts, but aside from that,
yeah.
So, cool. We'll be right back. And in the meantime, you guys can listen to this clip of Dan Tom talking about Jim Miller finding some dicks.
Liked by the sound of violence.
Anyways, he's laying the electric fences for the dogs. And he stumbles upon a big black dildo. He's like, what's this? And I don't know, he's this whole breakdown on it. And it just looks really bad because he's waving it around. You hear his kids like playing in the background. Like, oh Jesus. He's got this big American flag, tied around his head. I'm like, what the fuck is going on, Jim? And then he's got his other like quarantine, like he's got posts like later on, and like he's like talking about his haircut or something, and then all of a sudden he's got the dildo in his hand. I'm like, what is going on, Jim? Like, a lot of racial sensitivity and unrest going on. You're fighting a black man, and you're taking to your Instagram wearing an American flag, waving a black dildo around. I don't know what people are going to take from face value. Jesus Christ.
By the sound of violence.
But certainly I do not want, and I don't think we'll ever see a situation where just pure content creation for clicks replaces actual journalism, because the actual journalism is actually incredibly valuable. And to lose something like that, I think, would be detriment, not just to journalists or media people working in the space, but the industries they cover. Industries that they actually improve and affect by their journalism, I think would take a hit, would suffer from a lack of that kind of coverage.
Are you excited about it all?
Liked by the sound of violence.
Anyways, he's laying the electric fences for the dogs. And he stumbles upon a big black dildo. He's like, what's this? And I don't know, he's this whole breakdown on it. And it just looks really bad because he's waving it around. You hear his kids like playing in the background. Like, oh Jesus. He's got this big American flag, tied around his head. I'm like, what the fuck is going on, Jim? And then he's got his other like quarantine, like he's got posts like later on, and like he's like talking about his haircut or something, and then all of a sudden he's got the dildo in his hand. I'm like, what is going on, Jim? Like, there's a lot of racial sensitivity and unrest going on. You're fighting a black man, and you're taking to your Instagram wearing an American flag, waving a black dildo around. I don't know what people are going to take from face value. Jesus Christ.
Liked by the sound of violence.
Anyways, he's laying the electric fences for the dogs. And he stumbles upon a big black dildo. He's like, what's this? And I don't know, he's this whole breakdown on it. And it just looks really bad because he's waving it around. You hear his kids like playing in the background. Like, oh Jesus. He's got this big American flag, tied around his head. I'm like, what the fuck is going on, Jim? And then he's got his other like quarantine, like he's got posts like later on, and like he's like talking about his haircut or something, and then all of a sudden he's got the dildo in his hand. I'm like, what is going on, Jim? Like, there's a lot of racial sensitivity and unrest going on. You're fighting a black man, and you're taking to your Instagram wearing an American flag, waving a black dildo around. I don't know what people are going to take from face value. Jesus Christ.
Liked by the sound of violence.
Anyways, he's laying the electric fences for the dogs. And he stumbles upon a big black dildo. He's like, what's this? And I don't know, he's this whole breakdown on it. And it just looks really bad because he's waving it around. You hear his kids like playing around, playing in the background. Like, oh Jesus. He's got this big American flag, tied around his head. I'm like, what the fuck is going on, Jim? And then he's got his other like quarantine, like he's got posts like later on, and like he's like talking about his haircut or something, and then all of a sudden he's got the dildo in his hand. I'm like, what is going on, Jim? Like, there's a lot of racial sensitivity and unrest going on. You're fighting a black man and you're caking to your Instagram wearing an American flag, waving a black dildo around. I don't know what people are going to take from face value. Jesus Christ.
We're back.
Yeah, we are.
We're back to quickly recap UFC Fight Night, Blaydes versus Volkov. I think also known as UFC Vegas 3 or UFC Fight Night Apex 3.
ESPN 10, I think, also somehow. Fucking the naming conventions are so broken at this point. Also, we should mention before we get into that, we did forget to bring up our well-rounded picks. Yeah. Which I guess I should start off with, just because I teased it at the top of the show. Peter motherfucking Smolik and Brandon Turner, two local skating legends. Of course, if you guys are at all in skateboarding, you would know them from being on the Shorties team, Skate Mafia. You would know them from creating that, or just being bad motherfuckers in general in the skate scene. That's funny. I just got Chris's message that he sent me fucking 20 minutes ago on Skype. Yeah, no, they're great dudes. They literally, I mentioned Claremont Surf Shop CSS in San Diego. They are literally the dudes who everybody I know who either worked there or bought shit there or anything. Like, they would hook all of the local neighborhood kids up with, like, hey, just come to our house. And, like, I think Pete Smolik would just call them yard sales or something like that, or, like, garage sales, where he would just have all the local kids come over and just, like, take what they want. He's like, hey, listen, I got, like, fucking a garage full of shoes and shirts and boards. Everybody take one. And, like, so half the neighborhood would end up with skate gear because of Pete Smolik when I was growing up. Like, I had hand-me-downs of Pete Smolik hand-me-downs from other kids and shit. And just an all-around great dude in the Claremont scene. And, like, I've only had a handful of interactions with Pete, actually. Like, a lot of my buddies hung out with him a lot more. He may or may not have gotten a lot of them high for the first time. I'm not at whatever age they may have been at the time. But he was always just a very good dude who always, like, hooked up the community and was really good to everybody. And he also, tell me he doesn't remind you of our buddy Dustin a whole lot.
That's why I texted you that, man.
And really, he reminds me of, like, a lot of the kids in Claremont and San Diego in general, right? Like, Pete Smolik is San Diego as fuck. Like, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
And I even sent you a video, which I'll have in the well-rounded description. I think it's called Free Lunch, where I was like, oh, shit.
Yep.
Pete Smolik did a show called Free Lunch, if they let him pick where they're gonna go, I guarantee it's some local Claremont shit that's gonna be dope. Cut 2, pull it up, and it's the OG and now long gone Italian place in Claremont, Giovanni's, which is was the best pizza place in all of Claremont, and one of my favorites in San Diego.
So see, shouts out to I'm a Tirasana / Claremont kid because I grew up in Tirasana, but all my dad's side of the family, everyone grew up in Claremont. You know, they all went to Madison, that kind of thing. And Giovanni's roots was their main thing was in Claremont, but their old location was like right in like Tirasana
/
that's
right.
Kearny
They used to
Mesa,
have the one right by Bull Evil, right?
Yep, right by Bull Weevil, and that's the Giovanni's.
First place I ever had anchovies was that place.
As a Tirasana kid, I would go there all the time because Tirasana spot was like, you know, it's like maybe 2 minutes away off of Claremont Mesa. You know, if you're on Claremont Mesa Boulevard,
yeah, basically down and up the hill.
Tirasana Boulevard, yeah. That's why Tirasana and Claremont are kind of like interchangeable, especially In and Out. It's In and Out right there.
In and Out, like Kearny Mesa,
like the Tirasana and Claremont kids too.
I like how people pretend Kearny Mesa, Tirasana, and Claremont are different
right?
places, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's all about
Kearny
a 4-block
Mesa
radius.
is the bridge between those two communities.
Yeah, it's just Convoy essentially.
Yeah, you just call it Convoy, or Kearny Mesa is known as Jimmy Johnson Chevrolet, or all the other fucking car dealerships, right?
Ramen or cars? What do you need, bro?
Yeah, it's like, but in any effect, yeah, man, I'm glad to see some of those videos. It's cool. He reminded me of some other people I grew up with as well, to an extent. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun watching those, man. And were they drinking like some Belgian beers? They had like some Belgian.
No, they're drinking, but you might not remember, but they had the $7 schooners at Giovanni's. It was $7 for like those giant fucking schooner, like 32-ounce schooner goblets of like, I got Rec Alley, the fucking 9% Carl Strauss stout for like $7 for a fucking 32-ounce schooner of that thing. Fucking that place was. I'm not surprised they couldn't afford to keep it up. And also, it was such a hole in the wall. And it also, I should mention, it's about maybe 6 businesses down from Claremont Surf Shop, which is kind of ties it all together. But yeah, just very fucking Claremont as absolutely Pete Smoke. And also I should give a big shout to Brandon Turner as well, who was in that. And Brandon Turner's the guy, or at least one of the main people who headed up the Skate for San Diego protest that happened yesterday that a ton of people were at. I know Max Wright, who I went to high school with, was there. Gilbert was there. Yep. Brandon Turner was there. A bunch of pros from San Diego were down there. So it was really cool to see all that. And Brandon Turner, actually, I posted some stuff on Instagram about Pete and Brandon and them hooking everybody up back in the day, because Brandon was like our age. Pete was like Pete's probably like 10 years older than me, maybe something like that. But Brandon was like more towards, I mean, he's like maybe a year or two older than me, something like that. He was a real young kid, but he started hanging around. And yeah, Brandon's just always been a very nice guy, and fucking it was cool to see all that.
Yeah, I remember Trevor was telling me I think he bought a skateboard off of
everyone.
Pete Smolik. I mean,
I'm telling you, all of our friends, like, if they bought it off of him, it was for like $10 or $20, because Pete would just be like, "Listen, what do you got in your pocket? I'll take it for whatever you got." He's like, "Listen," like half the shit he would just give away, like shoes that didn't. He would just give away shoes. Like my buddy Clint, half his wardrobe was from Pete back in the day.
Osiris?
Like, who? He was with Osiris, Shorty, Skate Mafia.
Because even my buddy Jorge,
almost,
my buddy Jorge, we've had plenty of times. One of my best friends and my brother Kyle's best friend. Yeah, he was like, "Dude, yeah, I know Shorty's." He's like, straight up, he's like, I'm from Linda Vista. You know what I mean? Like,
Shorty's is one of our local, like, our big, like, Shorty's and Osiris are like our two big local shit. Like, I remember, well, first off, I had a teacher in 5th grade that worked for that like had a part-time gig at the Osiris factory and would like hook us up with shoes at the end of the year and shit. And like Shorty's, like, dude, I've had Pete Smolik roll up on me at skate spots so many times when I was a kid, trying to get my friends to go down handrails they should not have been going down.
Dude, it's kind of
my one buddy hit the hand. He went to kickflip a fucking I think it was a 6 or 7 stair, fucking landed and did the splits and died. And I'm pretty sure it ended up on one of Pete Smolik's skate videos back in the day.
It's funny because like I've never been a skater. I've never been part of the skate scene. I've had friends that were, but as far as like San Diego's reach, you have like.
We have
like,
one of the biggest scenes ever. Yeah.
I mean, I guess the
us in New
obvious
York
one that you,
and San Francisco.
Yeah, I guess the obvious one is what Tony Hawk as far as San Diego. And like, I mean, if you're to an extent,
Jamie Thomas, fucking. Like half the shorties team, fucking a bunch of dudes out of Temecula, a bunch of vert dudes. I mean, I grew up seeing a lot of dudes at like Mission Valley or at man, what was the fucking skate park that used to be? Yeah, actually, no, that was Mission Valley. Think about it, when they had that giant fucking vert skate park right by Mission Valley Mall and all that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are way off topic, but I wanted to give a big shout out to Pete Smolik and Brandon Turner because I've been in a fucking nostalgic ass mood for skateboarding shit lately, and I've been seeing Brandon Turner and Pete Smolik both like I mean, they've always been like on a big fuck cops kind of tirade, and Brandon I think just got out on a bid for weed if I remember right, but he's like doing really cool things in the community, and I wanted to give both those guys a shout out because they are. They both have been real good to me and a lot of kids I grew up with over the years, so I wanted to give them some love.
Hell yeah, man, that's what's up.
Cool, man. Did you have any well-rounded stuff that's... Oh, right.
Yeah. So
I was going to say, we should address our well-rounded from last week, which was the opposite of what I would call congratulations.
Yeah, so there's Twitter... Like I'll say again and again, Twitter's good for retaining and getting news. It's not good for cancel culture unless, as this famous
people be trying to fuck kids.
Oops, as he would say.
Yeah. Or I believe as Kimberly Condon had my favorite tweet, which was just sockward.
Yeah. There you go.
Fucking very good.
You know, right?
Yeah.
If you know who the fuck this is, Chris D'Elia, evidently.
If you know who Chris D'Elia is, hopefully you're not an underage girl.
Allegedly, because we'll give due process, right? He's pedophile.
I mean, yeah, allegedly
he
we'll
likes
give due
sexually
process.
grooming underage girls, and fucking them, and so I don't want to talk about it.
It's bad, but like we would like to officially
based
state
on the
first
reactions
off
of his friends in comedy and even people like Whitney Cummings, doesn't look good for him. Based on what I've seen on Reddit, certain people speaking out, based on Twitter, whatever you want to call it, you can be like, oh, bro, but there's no hard evidence. It's like, I get it, and don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna like.
What is hard? Like the problem I have with that argument is like there's never hard evidence for that kind of stuff, really.
And the worst argument too is, okay, well, why don't they come out earlier? And it's like, oh, you don't understand.
Yeah.
If you've ever been physically, mentally abused in any form, it's not something that you're just like, oh, immediately, oh yeah, this person did that to me.
Especially since it's generally people who are either victims throughout their past or people who don't have a voice. Tends to be the victims in a lot of these cases.
I'll keep it at that because I can go on I can go in my own words as far as talking about my opinion on shit like that. I don't want to do that, but it's a shame. Part of me certainly hopes that's not true. It's not looking good for Chris D'Elia because I like the dude's podcast.
I would like to clarify. You probably want to put a D on the end of that.
That's what I'm saying. I liked his podcast.
I want to make sure it's emphasized.
Oh no, I'm making sure I clarify. I liked his podcast. As far as his stand-up comedy, he's whatever. He's not that good. If I'm honest,
he's
never really been good.
Let's name on one hand the number of Rogan friends who are good at stand-up comedy. There's Doug Stanhope.
Yeah,
I'm waiting.
And even Joey Diaz, I'm sorry,
depends.
I like Joey Diaz, but I don't like his stand-up. It just made
Well,
him
he's
making
never
noises.
had a good public. Well, no, that's not true. But he's never had a good public like release of a CD. All of it, any actual releases he's done have been pretty not good. But
I think he's a funny guy, but even then, I saw they're trying to cancel him on Twitter.
Well, dude, they're gonna keep trying to cancel Rogan people, and I will just be the first to say, since we've probably referenced some of these shows on this podcast even, they're going to find way worse shit than they're finding right now. I don't know if people remember some of the podcasts Red Band rather used to host with women and booze.
Red Band or whatever the fuck. I saw some stuff and
it's
don't be wrong,
way worse than no. You've seen some. You've seen some stuff. I know. I've watched full podcast. I don't know if I don't want to shout out. I don't want to just point arrows at directions people should look. But like, stop. There's My point is though. Please.
Do you think it's fair? And don't get me wrong, I'm not justifying anyone saying certain things on their podcast, regardless if they're joking or not, because I don't know the context of whether it's a joke or not. I don't know if they've ever affected someone in some sort of physically or mentally abusing or traumatizing manner. Right? That's between that person and a potential victim. And I'm not saying anyone's being victimized because I don't know the context. My point is, and
also people have individual relationships where like I could make a fuck joke to you that wouldn't necessarily mean I was actually making that statement. Do you think it's
fair though for, say, me, and I'm not going to do it because that's not my interest too. Is it fair for someone to look up a clip or video from 10 years ago and saying, fuck that person, they made a fucking terrible statement, or it's gross, or now I'm alleging they sexually assaulted someone?
Sure. I mean, I think it's totally fair to disconnect my goddamn... Are we back? I think we might be back. Holy fuck, that was... frustrating. Okay, so let me get this out quickly before it kills us again. So girlfriend Karen and I were having a discussion yesterday I thought was interesting, which is like, you can't necessarily hold Eddie Murphy accountable for the shit he was saying in 1980 whatever on the Delirious special, but also we should not be congratulating necessarily what he said on the Delirious special. No. That's horrible. Like, I think that there's both room to understand that times were different, but also understand that, like, hey, it's a good learning experience. And, like, as long as that person who was acting poorly then is no longer acting poorly and recognizes that that wasn't okay, then that's what's most important, right?
Yeah.
And, of course, there's always ranges to that shit. Like, if Chris D'Elia says today, like, I get it. It's not cool to fuck kids, bro. Like, that doesn't... it's not exactly a fix, you know?
He's like,
Right, but if he says 2 decades from now, like, listen, I understand I'm a terrible person, and I understand
it was a bad
it
wasn't
thing.
Cool when you did it in 2020.
And he's like, all I can do is try and improve as a person and be better. Like, while you don't have any reason to forgive him, you absolutely... It's a more understand... Like... You can understand that there's some, not even gray area, but there's some... You have to always wish and hope for growth, right? Like, I guess that's what my whole point comes down to is the only thing that is to be best gained from all this shit is that we can all grow as people, right? Because that's the whole goal, right? Is to just all be better.
No, I agree. The thing with that dude is I like listening to this podcast. I liked listening to this podcast.
Thank you for clarifying again, because I was going to do it for you just to make sure it was clear.
And the biggest red flag for me
was that all his fans were 12.
I guess technically I'm getting conspiracy level now, or technically political, but he basically brushed off the notion that
I don't know if I want to get into this one, but go ahead.
Bring
it up because it should get brought up. But
this is just related to him, though. It's literally it was on what he's allegedly in trouble.
Not only that, but I listened to that. Say this. I listened to that clip recently, and it's way worse than you remember it being.
He basically brushed off that there's a notion that there's pedophilia in Hollywood. He's like, no, that's not a thing. That's basically what he said. He said there's no such thing as pedophilia in Hollywood, which is not true.
Well, and then he started making fun of it. You think people be fucking kids?
You think Pizzagate is real? Which, by the way, you can't technically at this point prove Pizzagate is real or not, because that's a conspiracy and that's a whole other thing. And I'm not going to actually acknowledge that because it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. That has to do with certain politicians and Hollywood elites, and that's not my business to talk about that. I'll tell you right now because we're not getting into that.
No, but
my point
for
is,
him to act all egregious about you think people secretly fucking kids?
Like,
It's like,
you're
dude,
being
people
defensive as fuck. And then also there's a clip of your podcast saying, "Bro, 14-year-olds look like they're 30 now." First of all, when was the last time you saw a 14-year-old? Because I have a 15-year-old cousin. It's like, yeah, that's a kid.
Well,
That's
also,
child.
why
That's
is
child. Why would you even think that?
I like your first question, which I think is even more important. When was the last time you saw a 14-year-old? Because I'm in my 30s and I don't have kids.
Because if you think about it in context, when you think about when we were obviously that age, 14, 15, yeah, you're a high schooler and you're seeing your friends as how you see yourself.
I'm not even saying that. I'm saying,
but my point is like, you don't know how an adult sees a kid. That's a point when you're a kid.
True, for sure.
Because,
but
how we're adults now, we're like, we look at them like, oh yeah, they're clearly children.
True, but I guess my point is, as a 30-year-old with a girlfriend who doesn't have kids, how often I haven't seen a teenager the last time I saw teenagers when I went to Knott's Berry Farm. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
How often does Chris D'Elia see teenagers? that it's like, oh, you know what? I got a good teenager joke. It's like, you don't have kids. Most of your friends' kids are not teenagers. Why do you got teenager-looking jokes? That's a weird thing.
The irony is he has a kid now.
The ironing. It's all horrible. It's bad. It's gonna get worse.
And what sucks about this too is when you say it gets worse to the extent because there's other people, not necessarily just in Hollywood, but yes, a lot of it in Hollywood that are doing this kind of shit, and it's just never going to be brought to light because there's so many other people that protect them. Like, bro, why do you think, besides Kevin Spacey doing what he did?
I mean, which fucking time, dude? Like, him and goddamn Kevin Spacey, the only person like more egregious than Danny Masterson is Kevin Spacey, as far as rumors have gone.
Oh, and did we say fuck Danny Masterson, by the way?
I mean, I feel like that was a given for a very long, which sucks because he is in two of my favorite stoner comedies of all time.
Yeah.
Fucking
doesn't like
Smiley Face and what's the one with the tiny classified ads with John C. Reilly?
Oh wait, why not?
Oh, it's so good. I can't remember the name of it. Here, I'll look at tiny classified ads, John C. Reilly. It is. Oh, that didn't. Fucking tiny. Of course, fucking it gets overrun by goddamn stupid NPR tiny desk bullshit. Danny Masterson. What the fuck was the name of that movie? I really liked it. And it bums me out. Although, I will say, and see, I can't even find it at this point because everything's just about him raping everyone. Which, fair. It's probably the coverage that should be happening. But also, I would like everyone to go back and rewatch the movie Smiley Face and be horrified to see him fucking a skull in that movie. Because he was literally, he literally played D'Elia. He literally was a creep who played a creepy roommate that was very creepy and fucked a skull in that movie.
For anyone who knows Chris D'Elia, his only two major acting roles, he played a pedophile.
Workaholics, shouts out. Nailed it.
Workaholics, he played a pedophile. And also in this show called You, which I will not watch because I already had, and you know me, I've talked about being a movie and TV buff. I got one good look at the show. I'm like, yeah, that looks like hot trash. I am not paying attention to that.
Wow, yeah.
In any effect, he ended up playing a character who is a famous comedian based out of Los Angeles who happens to be a pedophile. Wow. It's almost like it wrote itself for him.
His agent is like, maybe don't typecast that much.
And there's a lot of other videos and stuff that came out from other comedians, not necessarily his friend circle, but saying, Chris D'Elia doesn't sleep with underage girls.
Yeah, you mean your catch this week?
Yeah, right?
I mean, to be fair, if we go call a spade, Theo was the one that made that joke. But to be fair, I have made jokes about crystalline underage chicks. But that's just because that was his audience, which now in retrospect is like some fucking.
Yeah, he only calls his audience babies, and he calls himself daddy, right? Like,
I forgot about that part. Oh, that gets worse, doesn't it?
yeah,
that
and I
gets
think about it, I
much
was like,
worse.
wait, this dude's a fucking weirdo.
To be fair, I do really like whoever put out the shirt. So I saw someone put out a shirt. I wish I had the link. Here, let me see if I can Google it. But someone put out a shirt that all proceeds go towards I believe it was like all proceeds go towards victims of assault or something like that. But it was literally just called Dented. It just said Dented across his head. It's real good. It's a fucked up thing, and it's. I'm curious to see how that plays out because, like I said, I am not pointing directions or arrows or fingers. I'm not even saying I agree with any of this shit. I'm just saying we have not seen the worst of the clips that will come out.
He literally said on Rogan.
I'm not even saying Dalia. I'm saying that whole circle. If people want to find bad
I'll
clips,
say this.
there's
I've heard
bad
shit
clips
about.
to find.
I don't know if I'm supposed to really say their names on here.
You can reference what it's about. Don't say a show
I'm not,
title or a name.
No, I'm not gonna say it. I'll tell you.
I'll just say I know there is a show out there where someone drank. The whole premise of the show was to drink a bottle with a woman and then most of the time hook up with them. That's a podcast that exists out there.
Other people's names because I'm
not either, but I'm just saying that's a podcast that exists out there that like that's. It always was weird. It always was kind of not a great look. I get it, and it was all like arguably, depending on your definition of drinking and sexing, it was all technically, I guess, consensual, depending on your definitions of those things. But,
anyways, let's get the fucking recap.
I'm worried about how the next couple of weeks are going to go with all that stuff. But anyway, Chris, we're not here to talk about any of that. If
there's any good news about it, other people will get exposed.
Also, side note.
And dismantled.
Just to prove that I'm the ultimate hypocrite, Ari Shaffir did have a great episode of his podcast, episode 390, with Andrew Santino, which is all about whiskey. It's really good.
I'll say this. Say what you want of Ari Shaffir. I don't necessarily like him as for what he's done. I think that guy's a fucking idiot and a moron. His comedy's pretty funny. I like The Amazing Racist, but I don't particularly like Ari Shaffir. If I'm honest, I think good guy's kind
it's
of
funny that you like The Amazing Racist because that's one of the things that everyone's like dunking on him for, which is like it's.
Oh no! In hindsight, I'm saying in the context of when he had that out. Yeah.
Well, and the idea of it. See, a lot of that stuff
it's
is like
not good for what it is.
No, but the idea of it is very interesting. Like
I'm talking about like Ari Shaffir as far as like, oh yeah, let me just fucking spike Bert Kreischer's drink. Oh yeah, let me just shit on Kobe Bryant. Which, by the way, that's what he does. He does that kind of thing.
He's done that for decades.
I know,
which is why, like, out of context, I get why people got angry.
Based on when I followed Ari Shaffir, I'm like, yeah, he does certain stuff that are funny. But
he hates the Lakers. Yeah, he's definitely bad. Like, but arguably that is what makes
it easy to hate Ari Shaffir.
Well, and yeah. I don't know. I have a very complicated relationship with all these
And
teams.
yes, he's from North Carolina. He likes the Charlotte Hornets. Like, of course, and they drafted Kobe. Of course he's going to hate the Lakers and hate Kobe. They drafted him, and he said...
He's a Pelicans fan.
Yeah, now he is. But yeah,
now he is, but yeah.
He's from the Carolinas when Charlotte was, I mean, they're back, but my point is, yeah.
Well, and he went to Virginia.
And if your team at the time drafts Kobe and he says fuck you, of course you're gonna say fuck you.
Or wait,
just like when I was a diehard Chargers
Virginia
fan.
Maryland. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. I thought he's from the Carolinas, but I don't know.
He is, but I think he went to one of those two.
Either way, my point is just like when I used to be a diehard San Diego Chargers fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we drafted Eli Manning. Eli Manning say, "Oh no, fuck you." I'm like, okay, well, fuck you too, asshole. Right? Naturally as a sports fan, even though in hindsight, yeah, fuck Spanos, fuck the Chargers, fuck all that. They made the right move, but yeah, you don't want someone saying fuck you to your favorite franchise because you're like, okay, then we don't want you on our team.
Yeah.
Well,
on that note, I guess that was our second segment where we talked about nothing about this fight card.
So let's
To be fair, that was kind of, well, to be fair, I just want to say, to kind of end that out, like, we definitely needed to address it, and I think, like, most people, we have complicated feelings about it. Like, I mean, obviously, fuck that dude is not part of the complicated feelings. But part of the complicated feelings is, like, whenever we are out here saying we recommend something,
So can you help me with something? I had got some podcast merch, unfortunately, from Chris and Leah.
So that's the thing, right? Like, what do you...
Listen to me.
Do you already... Have you already received it?
Oh yeah, this was like 2 weeks before this shit even came out.
Oh, it's the worst time.
Yeah, it's bad timing. So it's like, do I just keep this at home because it's a comfy hoodie and I just wear it at home? But no, because every time I look at it, I'm like, fuck this fool, or do I just give it to Goodwill? Because I asked my brother, and he's
what
like,
you do?
He's like, yeah, you spent money on it. He's like, dude, like, obviously don't wear it in public. I'm like, no shit, won't wear it in public. Like, just wear it at home. Like, I mean, it doesn't bother me. It's just
you have two options as far as I can see it. You can, number one, donate it to Goodwill.
I mean, because that's my main plan.
Right. Or number two, you can donate the exact amount of money you spent on it to an organization that fights that kind of cause, and then deface it somehow in a funny way. Those are your two options.
I have to do that.
Yeah.
It's a cool, like, I'll be honest,
because just
cool
defacing
looking,
it,
the colorization of the hoodie is cool looking. I can get rid of what it says in the front. I might have to do that. Because don't me, I'm down to donate for people who've been abused,
arguably,
sexually, physically, or mentally.
Yeah, and my point is, arguably, defacing it is like you can't wear it the way it is, but if you deface it, you can. And make it like a pun, or not even a pun, like a satirical commentary on it, then yeah, absolutely, you can wear it in public still, and it's even arguably a better sweatshirt now.
What's fucked up?
And then, but the only thing is, you can't do that and then not donate to a cause, because then you gave money to him to be able to make that joke.
And the sad thing of the irony is, I wore it in public like two weeks ago.
I mean, to be fair.
And someone was like,
it's just how it goes
I fucking
sometimes.
love that podcast. I remember someone told me that, and I was like, yeah,
you're
man,
both,
me too.
You're both
but in
right
hindsight,
now.
you're like, oh no.
If you guys saw each other this week, you'd both be like, oh man.
Yeah, I'm like,
it's exactly how I feel about anytime I hear the name Three Amigos. I'm like, man, there was so many good things about that show, except for the one horrific thing that ruins all of it. Anyway, yeah, it's stuff is hard, man. Being in person is hard. Life is hard, and as long as we're all striving to do better, that's what's most important. Anyway, Chris, now that we talked about...
We have 12 fights to cover.
Now that we talked about all this shit and did not talk about the fights.
First fight of the night, let's talk about this.
Okay, wait. Before we even get to that, we should clarify what we're talking about, because I feel like it's been a year since we've done that. We were talking about the UFC on ESPN 10 card, a.k.a. UFC Fight Night Apex, a.k.a. Blaydes vs. Volkov, which took place at the UFC Apex on June 20th, 2020. And overall, this is a pretty cool card. I thought it was, going into it, it looked like it was going to be scrappy and competitive, and it was scrappy and competitive.
Yeah, I agree. I was at work watching it, so technically I can't. I invested, it was slow at work when I watched it yesterday, so I invested as much time as I could, especially when my cousin was on there. We'll get into that.
Your cousin kind of took a beating.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, like, it was a really fun fight, and like, Lauren Murphy looked the best I've seen her in a while. There was a couple people on this card that looked more impressive than I've ever seen them, or at least in a while. I guess we'll go ahead and kick this off with Austin Hubbard versus Max Roshkop.
So, what'd you think of Max Roshkop basically saying to his corner,
I mean, you have to
I'm done, and he said like a shitload of times, they're like, nah, man.
5 minutes. He had like 5 days of lead up to this fight. If he, and also I saw it come out today.
Wait, so
this was late notice replacement.
And you said it was less than a week?
It was canceled. Let's see, because Austin Hubbard was originally supposed to fight Joe Selecki, and that was canceled. Is there a date that was canceled on here? I don't see a date. It was, I believe it was less than a week.
Okay.
Here, I can probably figure this out if I Google something, if you talk for a second about this fight.
So, I didn't see much of this fight except that Austin Humber was beating the absolute shit out of Max Ropchkov. And that I saw it end, and that Max Ropchkov was telling his corner, hey, man, I literally can't continue. And I'm like, no, man, you're good. You're a fucking champion. Keep going, motherfucker. And they're like, go, go, go. And he's like, no, I'm done. And they kept saying him over and over again, you're good, you're good, you're good. And he's like, no, I'm fucking done. And it just kept going over and over, maybe like 8 or 9 times. And credit to the referee, god damn it, I can't remember who it was. The ref stepped in and they're like, dude, can you continue? Fighter, can you continue? And he's like, no, I cannot. And he's like, all right, are you ending this fight? He's like, yes, I am. And he's like, all right, fight's over.
Yeah, and I'm glad the referee stepped in because the corner should have. It's disappointing. And what's frustrating about it is, I believe the corner man is, oh God, I don't want to fuck up a name right now. I want to make sure I get the right name. It was Drysdale, right?
I believe so.
DRY. Yep. Yeah, Robert Drysdale was the head corner, I believe, at Zenith Jiu-Jitsu. Of course, you guys know Robert Drysdale from everything. And just a Vegas legend and all that. But yeah, if you re-listen to that, I saw somebody post today, and the entire minute in between the second and third, the entire 60 seconds, the entire time, Roshkov is just saying he wants out. And Drysdale the entire time is just arguing with him. Which, like, I get if you're arguing with him for, like, 45 seconds of that 1 minute. Like, trying to see if he's still there, trying to, rally him, trying to see if he can get a change in feeling or momentum. That shit never came, and he still tried. Like, he still was not going to stop it, and that shit is just bad for the sport. I actually heard that Dana also said that, or he said that, like, we need a change about that kind of corner work, which, because I actually heard that from Trent Reinsmith. I saw him tweet out that Dana had said that, which, man, good for Dana. Like, that's absolutely we need more voices supporting that kind of, ideals, because it's fucking dangerous to do otherwise. But it looks like it was about a week's notice or so. On June 14th, it was reported he was out, so it was less than a week. And you figure one of those days is a weight cut, so like he had like 4 or 5 days to prep. Because it looks like Austin Hubbard dropped out, and then he stepped in against him. And
so good performance by Hubbard. I'll let you cover the second fight, because I can't be biased.
Or sorry, Hubbard didn't drop out. The other dude did. Selecki. Lauren Murphy, Roxanne Modafari. You can totally be biased, but you will be the first to admit that Lauren Murphy absolutely smashed through this fight.
I mean, like I'll admit she beat my cousin. Like I'm not gonna,
in dominant fucking fashion. He was a shit kicking.
Yeah.
On the feet. And it was interesting. I thought this fight was going to go this way, except I didn't think Lauren Murphy was going to be able to consistently shut down grappling exchanges for that long. I thought she'd start getting stuck in the clinch.
I was hoping Roxy would be able to get the jiu-jitsu game going. And I know Lauren is strong and the takedown defense and just kind of in that clinch, that lower clinch grinding.
I thought Roxy, when she would start getting Lauren up against cage like she did, especially with the weight she's been putting on, with especially the muscle and everything, I thought she was going to have more success with just trying to get takedowns from the clinch against the cage. But Lauren Murphy looked extremely strong in comparison to her, which I was really surprised about. Yeah. And just was able to kind of muscle her anytime Roxy got Lauren to the cage. Lauren was able to just kind of muscle her way through over-under exchanges and get either separation or just muscle Roxy around enough to where she never even was able to really get in deep on any kind of real attempt on a takedown. So, impressive for sure. And holy shit, Lauren Murphy, one of a couple people who I did not expect to start putting together big combinations towards the end of the fight, but holy fuck, did they?
Yeah. Great victory by her. I mean, as far as that weight class goes, I think we will discuss who the fuck even really posed the challenge for Shevchenko. Certainly, Cynthia Calvillo doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Lauren Murphy's got a pretty good record right now. Her only losses to Sijara Eubanks since 2017. Wins over Barb Honchak, Mara Romero Borello, Andrea Lee, and Roxy Modafferi. Like, that's not fucking bad, man. That's pretty good resume for that division, all things considered. So, I'm excited to see what Lauren Murphy has coming up because she looked really good in that fight. And also, this is her, I believe, either her first or her second camp, not at the MMA. I believe it's her second fight, not at the MMA lab, actually. Which she said that most of her losing streak was at the MMA lab, which is interesting to know. And yeah, she definitely fought different than she used to at that old camp. There's no doubt about that. So I thought that was very interesting. And she's someone to keep an eye on for sure. Let's see. Justin James took on Frank Camacho. And this was the fight that Dan Tom, I mentioned, talked a lot about. Training, not only training him, but just being around Justin James, seeing him at early amateur fights in Vegas and walking out with the Guitar Hero guitar and stuff. And he is, I believe, I hope I'm not mixing up the guys Dan was talking about, but I believe he said Justin is like whatever he is, 16-4. But he has 4 amateur fights, or 3 amateur fights, but that doesn't count the other 50 that are on his record. Because he grew up, if I remember right, in like, I want to say, oh yeah, he grew up in, exactly, this is definitely him, because he grew up in Michigan, and Michigan didn't really have regulated fights. So he was just at a bunch of unregulated amateur shows where he has like 50 amateur fights, is what Dan Hom was saying. And man, he came in and just threw heaters at the face of Frank Camacho the entire time. And what I thought was interesting is Dan Tom, in his breakdown, said, I know Extreme Couture is scouting kicks because Frank Camacho eats every single kick he's ever fucking gotten thrown at him, specifically to the legs. And Dan said when he's worked with Justin in the past, Justin's the kind of guy who, even when he throws the non-power side leg kick to the inside leg, like in a switch stance matchup, even if he throws the inside non-power, or actually no, it was opposite stance matchup. Even if he throws that inside leg or the outside leg kick from the non-dominant leg, it still hurts like a motherfucker. And he said that was going to be a big part of the game plan. Meanwhile, Justin James just comes in there throwing the hardest hooks you've ever seen and just blisters Frank Camacho out the gate and puts him away in 41 seconds. Just fucking dominant performance and really scary.
Yeah, I watched, and it's what's ironic is when I was working, I looked up at the fight, and there's literally just, stand and bang,
just
right?
Heaters, dude. Everything was heaters.
I looked down, I think, to pour someone a beer, go like this. And I remember I looked up, and I was like, wait, what happened? I had no idea, because
there were a couple fights on this card where I looked down and looked back up, and I was like, oh, I gotta back that up.
God damn it, yeah.
That came out of nowhere. Yeah, 100%.
It's all good. I'll have to rewatch some of this card. How about this one? What do you think of Jillian Robertson?
Dude.
Rear naked choking out. Excuse me. Courtney Casey, who, by the way, did not look good weighing.
No.
Oh, God damn it. Did not look good weighing in. And
no.
May or may not have used some leverage.
Yeah, there's more arguments about the towel trick stuff. Not as bad as Jessica I last week, but
or DC, I'm kidding. I like poking.
Well, yeah, DC is the most egregious because it's on fucking camera. You can see it so clearly. Jillian, I mean, this was always going to be a question of whether Jillian can get on top and work her game. And she absolutely did. That choke at the end, though. Like, I thought this fight was going to go exactly how it went up until the end of that fight when Jillian sunk that RNC and finished so goddamn cleanly. Like, was this the one that Dom Cruz and, was it Bisping? Who was the other commentator with Dom Cruz?
It was Dom Cruz, Bisping, and John Anik.
Yeah, was this the fight where where she got the RNC and Dom Cruz was like fucking dunking on Bisping because Bisping was like, or Dom kept saying like, oh, if you get in that position you have to immediately turn your back to the ground, and Bisping was like, I mean, it was already really deep. Dom Cruz was like, that's fine if it's deep. You still need to immediately get your back to the ground.
I think that's the fight. Yeah.
I really enjoy Dom Cruz, like, because Dom Cruz is one of those guys who people don't listen to what he says. They listen to what their feelings about what he says a lot of times, because he is. I think part of it is he's a shorter dude, and part of it is he is very obstinate in being like very sharp and articulate about what he means, and there's no hiding behind it. And so when he'll say something, Bisping is like, well, I don't want to be that mean to the guy we're talking about, so let's maybe, like, it was really deep, it's kind of hard. And Dom's like, yeah, it doesn't matter if it's hard or not, that's the correct escape, Bisping. And then I fucking love that shit. I get it that it's a dick move. It probably is, but like, I'm
they show each other all the time too. Like, just listen to Believe You Me.
Well, yeah, Bisping talks about almost getting in fights with Dom Cruz.
Yeah, them slamming tequila shots and just
like
Dom
trying to fight him.
Say, "I can beat you up, bro." And Michael was like, "Okay, Dom,
you fucking what?" Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fucking do something. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, yeah, and also when you hear them on that podcast together talking about that same situation, and they still get into it. It's fucking...
Oh no, it's when he gets invited on a cruise, and he's like, "This is actually what happened, Michael." And then Michael's like, "What the fuck are you talking about, Dominic?" You know.
Yeah.
This is what you. Yeah.
That's why I love.
You're
both
2
those...
tequila shots in, and you're thinking, you know.
Yeah, that's why I love both those dudes a whole lot. It's for exactly the way they are. But yeah, Jillian Robertson, man, I am, especially on her work with Dean Thomas and her continued work with Dean Thomas, even now that he's left ATT. She says, like, hey, I'm working with Dean, and then
Duke Rufus son, probably strictly the Milwaukee.
I don't know that he is officially. I think he's kind of just like looking to work with specific people, like, because he's always been that guy anyway.
Yeah.
And then I think he's just making it more specified, even. But yeah, I know Jillian is like one of the people that he is like the most high on, and that he's every day training with type shit. And you can see it in her ground game. Like, her ground game is getting nasty in the same way that Eve Edwards really tightened up a couple guys' ground games, like Dustin Poirier and oh god, who's the young Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall and Dustin Poirier both like working with Eve Edwards. You see them tighten up just like their approach to the ground game, spending way less on time on bottom, spending way more time just winning small pieces. And I know that Mickey is like one of the less popular examples of that, but and I'm not sure if they're even still working together, but I know they were for a bit. And Dean is one of those guys who, like, you can see when Dean picks a dude and like specifically works with the dude, where you can see, similar to Eve, like you can see that they work on, because Dean and Eve both were guys who a couple close fights they lost were just because they got stuck working in from guard, and they just don't play that shit anymore as a coach. So I love seeing them coach people, because they are so not only position over submission, but they're position over submission with a constant threat to advance, which causes your opponent to kind of panic and give you options. And like they both love that, like, not even pressure pass game, but just like they're kind of like pressure fighters when it comes to grappling, wherein they're always trying to force a move. It doesn't matter what your move is, they just want you to move so that it keeps the exchange going. We saw a little bit of that with Jillian. We saw her really start opening up with her ground strikes later. But yeah, overall, I thought it was super impressive. Did you see the Marc-Andre Barrio fight versus Oscar Pichota?
I saw it was Slobber Knocker.
Pichota?
I saw that these dudes were fucking swinging. Because for
Say swinging
these,
and banging.
yeah, for these couple fights, it was kind of more or less me filling people's beer, and I look up at the TV. I'm just seeing them just kind of just tagging the fuck out of each other and swinging and.
Dude, it was just a slobber knocker.
I just remember, it was two light heavyweights, and like, I know Pichota, I know Marc-Andre, but like, I unfortunately that was the irony.
hard.
I unfortunately didn't see half the finishes because it's me going, yeah, I'll get another beer. I'm like, all right, and I turn the fuck around, and then all of a sudden they're like fucking getting knocked out behind me, and then I turn around, I'm like, all right, here's your beer, and I look up there, I'm like, what just happened?
To be fair, I was making a lot of like blended cocktails, so I had a lot of similar experiences because I was like, oh, all right, let me real quick blend this strawberry daiquiri up. And then fucking as soon as I pull it off the blender, I'm like, wait, why is he asleep? But yeah, no, Oscar Pichota or Pichota?
I don't know. I just call
they said
Pichota.
it 1,400 times on the broadcast, and I still can't remember. So
Pichota is what I call it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think anyone wants to be called Pichota.
I mean, all right, Oscar Pichotes.
Pichota, I don't know.
Oscar Pichotes took on.
There we go, Pichotes.
Yeah, took on Mark Bearings and
Mark Bearings.
just not even trying. But no. To be fair, Marc-Andre Barrio quickly started figuring out that if he threw uppercuts, it was absolutely going to be a problem for Oscar Pichota over and over and over again. Just especially in the clinch at short range, just started banging him with those uppercuts, and eventually it did lead to the ground and pound finish. But you could see him slowly over time working out. Like, he would land over the top of a lot of strikes, and then slowly you saw him just start grabbing the back of the neck and ripping uppercuts, and it would just land clean as fuck every time. And as he kept pressing that game, plus Pichota gassed super hard at like 40 seconds left in the first round, and after that it was just kind of destined to go that way. But fun fight, right?
Yeah, it was a good fight from what I saw.
Dude, so
this is
I
why
got a question.
I'll let you do the next one, because even then the next one I was busy too. It was like when I got my rush at work, I'm like, fuck.
To be fair, this is exactly at rush time, because this would have been like 6 or 7 o'clock. So that would have been like right when you're dealing with most people, I'm sure. Man, I was really... So I actually even tweeted at Gabe Killian, I think, this week. Shouts to Gabe Killian, who has the hot chicken sandwich place or whatever in L.A. Comedian. You guys know him from Punch Drunk Sports, maybe. I'm not going to do a Jason Tebow impression of Gabe Killian, because that's probably not the nicest thing, but I love me some Gabe Killian, as crazy as that dude is. But Brianna Van Buren, I thought going into this fight, Tisha Torres has had mad problems with people who will bully her in the clinch. Tisha has shown in her last couple fights she does not dig underhooks consistently. She does not turn off the fence consistently. And if you really bully her and if you have any kind of strength advantage and you can win in the clinch, it can really shut a big part of her game down. I thought Brianna Van Buren was going to do exactly that, which she did for the first 4 minutes of this fight. And then Tisha just seemed to turn a corner where she was like, fuck this shit, and just started throwing heaters and long combos. I mean, she landed early, which definitely gave her some confidence, it seemed like, before she got stuck in the clinch. But she did a much better job in this fight of framing out and being able to circle off the cage and not being stuck there for the full round, which she had I mean, that's a huge evolution growth, after her last fight against... who was it? Marina Rodriguez, where she consistently... I mean, I called that fight because it was... Tisha's always kind of had a history of, if you grab her and walk her towards the fence, she'll kind of just sit on the fence for a bit and let you work. Just try and and she'll look for an opportunity to exploit out. So I thought that was really interesting, and I thought it was going to go a lot like that, which it did early. And then Tisha just started hitting like fucking Tekken combos on Brianna Van Buren after she realized that how to just exit. She exited the clinch, I think, 1 or 2 times in the first round, and then got stuck in I believe, early in the second after landing some decent shots, and then circled out, and then just started throwing like fucking 6-piece Tekken combos by the end of this fight, like with finishing everything with kicks and staying way outside and just running Brianna Van Buren down to the point where she's turning away like Gustafson McGregor style and just like trying to avoid engaging. It was absolutely incredible. I would argue one of the best performances I've ever seen from Tisha inside the octagon. It felt like, honestly, it felt like Invicta Tisha. Like, it felt like what we used to see from her back then when she would just come forward and throw a million-piece combos and just all kicks, all fucking... Except there's a lot more, like, weight... Needed. Yeah, well, it's not only that, but she's putting a lot more... It seems like she's putting a lot more weight behind stuff. Because a lot of her kicks in the past are like kind of slappy outside, you know, flat, like Michelle Watterson shit is like a better example for it. Like a little bit more commitment, a little bit more power to it, but she was like stepping in hard with body kicks, stepping in hard with high kicks, and just making shit ugly and piecing together 4 pieces in a combo, finishing with the kick. Like, it was fucking great. So, very high on... One of the most impressive performances I've ever seen from Tisha Torres in the UFC. And, holy shit, am I excited to see what she has going forward.
So, what do you think of this next fight? I saw some of it because I think it was right when I was off work and I was eating or drinking.
I loved it. And it was the most Bobby Green Clay Guida fight ever.
What's up?
I said I just loved it because it was the most Bobby Green Clay Guida fight ever.
Yeah, and I didn't really judge it because I saw both sides just kind of just doing pressure damage. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those fights where I thought both of them were doing enough to win, and then at the end of the fight, they're like, "How do you score it?" I was like, "I don't know." And it's not a bad fight. I just didn't really know how to score. I think how many takedowns
I definitely had not much. Let me see if I have a stat on that.
Because part of me was thinking Guida, but then part was thinking Green, because Green had control on the distance management.
Let me see. Because Green did hit a couple takedowns in that fight, if I remember right.
He got takedowns.
Well, I think they both did, but like not much.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can pull up the stats page. Yeah, UFC stats. Sure, we'll pretend like these are real. It looks like Clay Guida got 3 takedowns. Bobby Green got 2.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, and what was really interesting to me in this fight is, man, I really... Like, it felt like old Bobby Green. Like, what was the, shit. I'm trying to go so far back in Bobby Green's career. Because Bobby Green, way back in the day, didn't he have an Affliction fight? Or am I mixing him up with... It's probably me being racist and mixing him... No, he did a fight in Affliction 2 against Dan Lozon. And he got caught with the RNC. That's what I was thinking of. Like, this is the best I've seen Bobby Green since his comeback after the Dan Lozon fight. Like,
okay.
Or maybe a Strikeforce run even. Like, dude just looks so fucking good. And Clay Guida just could not get anything going, it felt like.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know your feelings on it, but it just seemed like overall, Clay Guida just kept trying to get inside and get a takedown on him, and he just had no going. It's like, anytime Clay actually did get anywhere near a takedown, Bobby Green was able to lock up that power guillotine from the front headlock position and just immediately make Clay panic and bail. Like, that was the closest options he had. Bobby Green dug that really deep power guillotine and just fucking immediately made Clay like panic and circle. Some awesome fucking scrambles and whizzers and switches hit in this fight though. Like, some of the grappling exchanges were dope as fuck.
I agree, and good on Bobby Green for that. that win, and good to him for his post-fight interview, recognizing his foster father.
Yeah, big
which
shots.
was cool.
Yeah, big shots to Bobby Green in general. That dude is he's a really interesting character, and man, that was a big and very dominant win in a way that I wasn't so sure it was going to be. So, speaking of dominant wins, Bilal Muhammad.
No, what about Jim Miller?
Oh, you're right, Jim Miller. What are we talking about?
I
Speaking of
didn't even
dominant
see
wins,
this, unfortunately. He defeated Roosevelt Roberts via submission of armbar.
yeah. Man, I didn't. So Roosevelt Roberts gets taken down maybe 30 seconds into this fight, probably not even that, which is a bad sign for Roosevelt Roberts. He then is able to hang in pretty well. I believe there was some scrambles, and Jim Miller ended up on bottom, and then Roosevelt Roberts just ended up leaving his arm in on an armbar, and you can't do that shit against someone of Jim Miller's caliber. Fucking man, Jim Miller, man, you can't count him out, and man, I'm here for as many Jim Miller fights as there are gonna be. I'll watch all of them. I'm fucking here for him. Especially after his black, as you guys heard on the break, Jim Miller's black dildo Twitter experience that he's been posting all week. Dan Tom, by the way, now that we're deep in this episode and I can actually talk about this, Dan Tom making jokes about, hey, Jim Miller, you know what's going on with the country right now? Maybe don't be waving a black dildo around in front of an American flag while about to fight a black man on national television. Fucking some of the best shit ever. If you guys have not listened to that Dan Tom episode, yeah, go back and listen to it. It's really good.
And then we got
Bilal Muhammad and Lyman Good
versus Lyman Good.
Lyman, yeah. Bilal Muhammad absolutely just housed Lyman Good. Well, that's not necessarily fair, but
Lyman Good, who had coronavirus about a month and a half ago.
Oh, fuck, I forgot about that. Just like Spike Carlisle's opponent, Billy Quarantillo. I like how we don't like to talk about Billy Quarantillo having coronavirus, even though he fought Spike Carlisle 3 weeks ago, which is around the ingestion time of coronavirus. Also, has anybody heard from Spike Carlisle lately? Because he's in San Diego. Chris, does that make you feel better?
Whatever.
I mean, to be fair, we are spiking.
You
I don't know if you've seen.
Florida,
I don't know if you've seen.
If I get coronavirus, I get coronavirus.
Dog, I don't know if you've seen video of San Diego, but let me put it this way.
Hey, just don't go to PB.
Dude, you saw that fucker get shut down? I forget the name of that place. You know the name of that place? El Prez, yeah. Fuck El Prez.
Fuck PB. How about that? That's the real thing.
Well, that too. And also, El Prez is one of the... it's very pretty, but so is every fucking beachside bar in PB. Let me put it this way. If Shore Club isn't getting shut down for too many people, no one has an excuse to getting shut down for too many people. Point. That's an indoor, upstairs, very small bar that is right on the corner of the biggest area in PB. Although, didn't 710 Club get shut down at some point also?
I have no idea, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I think they got shut down in the first round. Anyway, yeah, fucking shouts to San Diego bars being fucking bad instigators of coronavirus, which I have a feeling we are going to be on lockdown again in about a week.
So I'm falling.
Anyway, Bilal Muhammad absolutely boxed the face off of Lyman Good, from what I remember. This is also around the time where the second edible I took kicked in, so we'll take that into account.
Yeah, I was good on Bilal Muhammad. He's a cool dude.
I love Bilal Muhammad. I'm the biggest Bilal Muhammad fan.
This next fight, I caught some of which it was mostly grappling event against the cage, if I recall. It was between Raquel Pennington and Mary Renault.
Yep.
Rocky Pennington got to the unanimous decision victory. It wasn't really eventful from what I remember. But she did what she did to get the win. Excuse me.
Yeah, she graded out late, and there was some parts of that fight that I was pretty curious to see how it was going to go. But she really rallied hard in the second and third, and was able to take it.
Yeah, and good win for her. I'm going to go ahead and get to this next fight because to me...
Okay, but I will say, Rocky Pennington,
Yeah.
a very, very big and very needed win for her. And I would like to also say Rocky Pennington joins the Anthony Johnson club of, if you foul me, I'm going to fuck you up. Because she ate arguably one of the nastiest vagina shots I've ever seen in the sport. Where she had to take like a 3-minute break because she got hit so clean in the junk by Marion Renault. And then she came out and fucked Marion Renault up for the rest of that fight, which is the classic Anthony Johnson don't poke me in the eyebrow technique. So I'd just like to say, Rocky Pennington, don't hit her in the junk.
Was it like a full-on fucking like leg
It was
strike
the most egregious knee in the clinch I've ever seen.
Oh, knee. Oh, geez.
It was right. It was right. If you could hit someone, if you could aim for a clit, I would assume that was 100% target. She was like Will Ferrell in Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. She's going directly for the clit.
Wait, he was in that movie, huh?
Not only that, but that was such a good reference.
That movie fucks me up because I always get it. I
am the Clit Commander, Chris.
All the fucking Kevin Smith movies fucking confuse me because I think
they all blend together.
I think of Clerks 1, which I've seen. Yeah. I think of Mallrats, which I've seen.
Which is the best.
But then I always forget that I've barely seen Dogma. I've also barely seen Jane Silent Bob. What do you know what I'm talking about though here? Do you see why it's easy to get that shit confused? Because they're all like released.
Well, and also it's all the same people and it's all very similar plot lines.
I was like, wait.
You're like, wait, was it the religious one or the Hollywood one or the Jersey one or the?
But seriously, a good reference though. I kind of watch it again.
No, well, watch Mallrats. Fuck everything else. Mallrats.
I mean, right? Then you get that Stan Lee cameo too, right?
100%.
Yeah,
that's right, true believer.
Yeah.
Fuck us.
Excelsior, right?
Anyway, Raquel Pennington had a great performance and a big win for her that she was much needed.
Big one for her. We'll see what the fuck that weight class holds.
Yeah. I don't know. We need to talk about Josh Emmett versus Shane Burgos.
The real main event.
Dude, the fight.
I mean,
it's not fight of the year only because a couple others have existed. I mean, I would put this over Gaethje Ferguson because it was way more competitive. What was the crazy one at the beginning of the year that's obviously the winner?
Yeah.
I forget. There's been a couple obvious ones that are better than
all I know is Burgos liked pain.
But holy shit, dude. Shane Burgos first off, Burgos won 3/4 of this fight up until he lost, it felt like. Like, somehow, like, I thought Burgos was going to win this fight up until, like, the last 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah. Okay. It was so crazy. Like, I'd like to hear your takes on this, because how much of it were you able to see?
Probably like half of it, but every time I looked up,
somebody was getting smashed.
It was just not even action. It was not even. It was a fucking great fight. Yeah. Like, dude, I saw half that. I was like, wow, these dudes just leaving all on the line, and I was like, this is fantastic.
Yeah,
that's all. Like, every time I looked, I was like, wow. You know, like,
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. It was really back and forth for a big portion of that fight, which I was surprised about. Going in, I thought, honestly, I was in the same camp as a lot of people, which shouts to fucking what's his face right after this fight, Josh Emmett, immediately dunking on every single MMA journalist who was saying that they felt like going into this that Josh Emmett is going to lose unless he lands a big shot, which, to be fair, that's kind of how fighting works.
By the way,
number one,
Shane Burgos fallen to 13-2 with his only 2 losses made to Josh Emmett and Calvin Kattar, which isn't bad company, which I believe they're trying to find Calvin Kattar a fight, but I can't remember who against who. I saw some rumors. God damn it. I know they're doing Zabit Magomed Sharipov versus Yair Rodriguez, and they're doing Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega. So where does that leave Calvin Kattar?
That's an interesting question.
Because Josh Emmett's got to be up near that ranking too.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I would love that fight. That'd be incredible. Like, that's one of the best matchups you can make.
Cater over Emmett, but
I probably do too. But also, Josh Emmett just has that death fucking touch. Like, you can't really put a value on Josh Emmett's ability to just touch dudes and make them die. Like, especially Shane Burgos has, I believe, like everyone has said this week, the craziest chin I've maybe ever seen in my life, and that's insane coming off the Tony Ferguson fight where he ate death bombs from Justin Gaethje for 5 rounds. But like,
once we're done with this, I'll have to put that on TV for Trevor to see. Because
there are 2 contenders for the craziest chins in MMA right now, and it's Shane Burgos and Tony Ferguson, and neither one of them can keep up this pace. And they actually, there might be something to the way they hold their chin, because they both kind of have that hunched over high
just
shoulder,
like to want to absorb some shots or some sheer
they have a little bit of that, like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, what was the butler from the Addams Family?
Oh,
Fester? No,
that's the bald fuck.
But you know what I'm talking about? The hunched over fucking, or like Igor from any fucking Disney movie. Or wait, was Igor from Addams Family? Might have been. Anyway, the classic hunched over,
Butler,
like,
I think Alfred or like Jarvis. Or something.
Yeah, I guess Butler's not the right phrase, but like, you know, the hunched over, like, like a cartoon character in any fucking Scooby Doo thing that carries fucking luggage with like a hunched over. Yeah, exactly. Like, they both kind of have that fighting style where like it's all forward, like hunched in like real tight high guard. And I believe that's part of what leads them directly into overcuts overhands over the top that they just get smashed, or the left hands too, even, which they just get smashed with around their guard. But man, holy fuck, dude, Josh Emmett, one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen in a fight that he fucked up his knee so bad so early on. I don't know if you noticed that, but he completely blew out his ACL.
up,
dude, you could see it right away.
Minutes.
Like, right away, you could see his movement was
he was
fucked.
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw it the second I saw it happen. I was like, he's not gonna be able to move right for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, I mean,
for him to be able to pull that out with a dude as a dude who's known for stationary power and loading up, like, that is so impressive. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Hats off to Josh Emmett. We'll see what where he's holding on 145 division. Shane Burgos, no shame in that loss. That dude put it all out there on the line.
Yeah.
Showed a lot of heart and toughness and greatness.
One of the craziest chins. How did he survive that fight?
That dude was laughing maniac.
It's insane type shit. And this isn't the first time he's taken those kinds of fucking crazy bombs and just laughed them off. It's wild.
He was laughing in a maniacal manner. The dude's a madman.
And speaking of eating wild bombs and just walking through them, Blaydes and Volkov.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of, I'm going to fight this way because I say I am, and he literally did that.
Oh, I just meant Volkov ate fucking heaters on the ground in those earlier rounds that are fucking upsetting looking in retrospect.
Oh,
the sound coming off of his head.
Like,
oh my
some of
god!
the fight, but it was mostly I was like, oh, Blaydes has him on the ground. All right, and then I went back and I'm just
I'm not gonna lie.
And I look back again. I'm like, oh, okay. There he goes again.
No, 100%. The way I watched this fight was,
and I like wrestling, but I also was like, fuck, it's the
I love
heavyweight
wrestling.
division. No, I was like,
No, yeah, heavyweight wrestling is the thing. Yeah, no, you know they're not getting up anytime soon if you see a takedown. So that's why I was like, all right.
I was hoping to see Volkov go, I can't let you get close. But it's like,
yeah, but even still, yeah, no. The thing was, is like when first off, Blaydes got the takedown like 10 seconds in, and I was like, oh, that's gonna be a long night. And then like he was just landing heaters on the ground. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go make cocktails. So I made some cocktails, came back. He's still beating. I mean, I can see the TV the whole time, but still beating him up. And then slowly you see Curtis Blaydes start slowing down a little bit towards the 4th and 5th. But, like, at this point, it's hard to know what to think of Volkov. Because, like, if Blaydes was done in that 5th round, and if you can't put away a heavyweight who's done in the 5th round because you're also gassed from getting fucked over wrestling-wise, and you had 0... Did he have a takedown? Did he stop a takedown in this fight?
I couldn't tell you. But I can tell you, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic, right?
No, I mean, I legit am curious. Like, he might... Okay, that's not true, because I know he stopped a couple in the later rounds, but, like, the average has got to be horrific. Because it was... There's no fucking way. Oh, God, I just tried to look up UFC stats. You know how bad that's going to go. Holy fuck. So, oh God, Curtis Blaydes went 4. Curtis Blaydes landed 14 of 25 takedowns in this fight. Volkov landed 1 of 2. Oh God, yeah, that about sums up how I feel about that fight.
I'll say this: great performance by Curtis Blaydes. You're not getting
Volkov, to be fair, hung in there and made it.
You have to fight Ngannou, who already beat you twice. So if I'm Curtis Blaydes, I just hope the winner of Stipe and GC beats Francis, and you're like, all right, I'm waiting. All right, bye, and then like you're good. And I'm not saying that as some sort of disrespect. I'm just realistically, it's like, dude, you already lost Ngannou twice, so they're you just have to wait.
It's just where we're at, and like the division could change, but yeah, I agree. But dominant win for Curtis Blaydes, and honestly, Volkov hanging in as long as he did is a good sign for him, because that's impressive as fuck. Most dudes have not been able to, considering what Blaydes did to fucking Overeem and the way
cracked open his fucking head,
and the way Volkov was getting smashed with some elbows early, like super impressive for him to rally as hard as late as he did in the 4th and 5th. So
yeah, I agree.
Cool, man. Well, you want to wrap this shit up?
Yeah, I'm super hungry and pretty fucked up, as you can tell.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and wrap this here, but we love you guys for listening.
Yeah.
It's been some crazy shit in the last couple weeks, and we just we love you for being here with us. So, Chris, anything you want to shout out before we get out of here?
I mean, I'm not sober, so I don't really have anything soberly shout out.
Anything drunk to shout out?
Yeah, fuck yeah. If you have a PlayStation, go definitely get Last of Us Part 2.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Or don't if you don't like depressing shit. Full disclosure.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. It's a good narrative.
It's going to get sadder.
It's going to get sadder. I mean, in any event, yeah, that game is fucking cool. If not, sad shit. If you're a fan of Red Dead Redemption or Assassin's Creed and you own a PlayStation, wait until July 17th for Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, there you go.
Set in feudal Japan. You play basically a samurai or a ronin. And yeah, it's literally like Red Dead meets Assassin's Creed. So if you like either one of those games, oh yeah, this game's tight. So I can't wait. It's a good time to be a PlayStation, to have a PlayStation, really. So
hell yeah, man.
Fuck yeah.
Well, we will go ahead and wrap this here, but as always, you guys can find us TSOV Pod on Twitter, or you can find Chris at Chris Madaffer on Twitter. You can hit us up, sovpod@gmail.com, or go to thesoundofviolence.com to find any of the full show notes. And until next week, everybody, we love you. Go do something decadent. We love you being around, man. Light.
Liked by the sound of violence.